Welcome to r/entitled people, where OP lets Karen borrow their car and really ends up regretting it. I stupidly let my mom borrow my car and now she's refusing to give it back and I'm stuck unable to work. My mom's car was rear-ended, so while she was waiting for her insurance to decide whether they would cover the repair, I decided to let her use my car. We spoke on the phone and agreed that I would lend her my 2013 Toyota Corolla from July 23rd to August 2nd, which would be a Friday. The reason I agreed was because she told me that by Friday, she could start working from home and wouldn't need a car as desperately. I specifically told her I needed my car back on that date because I'm in the middle of starting a small auto shop, which is a good 40 miles away from where I live. Stupid of me, I know, but I wanted to be a good son and help out my mom. Plus, at the time, I didn't need the car since the paperwork wouldn't be done until the 5th or 6th of August anyway. The problem is that it's now August 13th and she still hasn't returned my car. I've called, texted, left voicemails, the whole 9 yards. I even ordered a Lyft ride to her house in an attempt to get my car, only to find that she had locked it up in her garage and refused to answer the door when I knocked. I called the police, who showed up, knocked on the door, and told me that because I allowed her to use my car, this was a civil matter. They said I'd have to send a 10-day letter of demand before I could report it as stolen. The problem is that I'm a 24-year-old who's just sunk $7,900 into my garage startup, and I can't afford to sit around waiting for 10 days when I need to be there making money. I have 2 trusted mechanics who left their jobs to come work with me, but they haven't been paid or given any work yet because I can't get to my shop to set up the server and shop management system. I literally only have $200 left, so I can't afford to keep taking Lyft rides and running around town searching for her. I feel like a huge idiot for letting myself get into this situation, and I just don't know what to do. I have my letter of demand drafted, but I'm worried that in that 10-day window, she'll damage my car or run it into the ground. I still owe $14,000 on it, and the oil change service interval was coming up at 58,000 miles, which I know she's not going to pay to have done. All that BS talk about blood being thicker than water is exactly that, a load of BS. Have you sent a letter of demand? OP. I'm afraid that if I do send it, she'll destroy my car. If I don't have a car, I can't get to my shop, and I don't have money to buy another one. The Corolla only had 57,000 miles on it the last time I checked. I always thought our relationship was good, but she's the kind of person who puts her wants and needs above everybody else. I need my car back so I can get to work and make money, but she doesn't care. She has a doctor's appointment next week and needs my car. I knew that's the kind of person that she was, yet I still chose to let her borrow my car. I should have known that I wouldn't get my car back on our agreed upon date. Do you have a spare key for it? If so, can you wait until she goes to work and then just pick it up from her job and leave? Or if not at work, when she goes to the store or something. You might have to stake out the house all day for her to leave, but it could be worth it to get your car back. OP. Yeah, I bought a spare key and a low jack tracker, but the issue is money. I only have $200 and some change. I know a repo job is going to cost more, plus because she knows I want my car back, she's not staying in one place for long periods of time. When she's home, she puts it in the garage, which makes planning a grab difficult. Plus, she still has my other keys and knows where I live. I wouldn't put it past her to try and come and take my car back, but at least if she does that, I can immediately report it as stolen. Update. I followed your guys' advice and I sent the demand letter and waited. The 10 days ended yesterday, but she still wouldn't return my car. So I went downtown to the police department to report my vehicle as stolen. I was able to get her on the phone with the sergeant, who told her that once I decide to press charges, it becomes felony possession of a stolen vehicle and unauthorized use of it. If she's caught driving it, or if it's found at her house, she'll be arrested and charged, and I would not have a say in the matter. Once I sign that line, whatever happens next happens. Long story short, that lit a fire under her, and she left the car with my spare key in the glove box across the street. Of course, I requested an officer to meet me at the location just in case she tried to be belligerent or if my vehicle was damaged, which it wasn't. She's officially had my car since the 23rd of last month, but it's back in my possession now. She put well over 2,000 miles on it, and the maintenance light is on. But for now, I'm just glad to be done with it. I want to thank all of you who gave me good advice. As for my shop and getting there, one of my mechanics lent me his old car so I could get to and from work. The shop is up and running, and we're already up to our necks in jobs. We've even got 7 satisfied customers and 5 others waiting on parts. I'm glad to say that everything worked out once I took a step back and analyzed everything. Am I wrong for refusing to meet my biological mom in person after I signed up for a DNA testing site? I'm 24, male. I was adopted when I was 6 years old. I've always felt incredibly lucky because my adoptive parents, who were in their late 20s when they took me in, have been nothing short of amazing. They've loved me and supported me as if I were their own flesh and blood, and I've never felt like anything was missing in my life because I was adopted. Growing up, I had a very minimal detail about my adoption. I know that I was removed from my biological family by social services, but I don't remember anything about my life before I was adopted. It's not something I've dwelled on much because I've never felt like I needed those missing pieces to feel complete or valued. Recently, out of simple curiosity, I decided to sign up for one of those at-home DNA testing kits. I wasn't looking for a reunion or any deep connection. I just wanted to know more about my genetic history, like why I was removed from my biological family and if there were any medical issues I should be aware of. Honestly, I didn't expect to find anyone closely related to me, so it felt like a low-stakes way to get some answers. About 8 weeks after sending off the kit, I finally remembered to check the results. To my surprise, I matched with my biological mother. She had sent me a message saying she was overjoyed that I had done the test and that she desperately wanted to reconnect with me and the rest of my biological family. She mentioned that she's thought of me every day, that I was always loved, and even that I have a biological little brother who's very excited to meet me, something I didn't even know. Her message was really emotional and, to be honest, overwhelming. To me, she's a complete stranger, and reading those words didn't stir anything in me other than discomfort. I spent a lot of time crafting a thoughtful response to her, explaining that while I appreciated her message, I wasn't interested in forming a relationship with her or any of my biological family. I made it clear that my reason for doing the DNA test was purely informational. I wanted to understand my past, maybe get some medical history, and learn why I was removed, but that was it. I apologized if my actions gave her the wrong impression. She read my message and replied, saying that she'd be willing to give me all the information I wanted, but only if I agreed to meet her at a cafe to discuss our relationship further. I refused, telling her that I wasn't comfortable with a face-to-face meeting. I offered a phone call as a compromise, but emphasized that I just wanted the information and then for both of us to move on with our lives. She outright refused to provide any information unless I agreed to meet with her in person and discuss our relationship. I talked to my best friend about this, and she sided with my biological mother, saying that I was being unfair. She argued that by signing up for the DNA site, I had essentially opened the door to this kind of situation, and that refusing to meet with biological mom now is like playing mind games and leading them on. So, am I the jerk for not wanting a relationship with my biological mother after I signed up for the DNA testing site? Not the jerk. Fellow adoptee here. I did meet my birth mother when I was 16, and I've spent the following 16 years regretting it. Mine is selfish and manipulative and pulled the same trick. I'll tell you everything when I see you. No, do not engage. Half of what she told me was outright lies, and she's desperately tried to wedge herself into my life at every opportunity when I've made it clear that I do not want her. How does it feel to be unwanted, egg donor? Welcome to my world. I'm an adult now and I have my own kids. My parents were wonderful people. I didn't have the best life or anything, but I was raised by people who loved me and wanted the best for me. It's hard. Your biological mom has expectations, and you have different ones. The thing is, she's being unrealistic and unreasonable by holding the info you want hostage. I'm sorry you're dealing with that. It's not right of her, and it's not fair to you. OP. I understood that what she would have told me wouldn't have been likely the objective truth, but I was interested in hearing it from her anyway. In some ways, I suppose I was a little curious about her and her life, but I didn't want a relationship with her at this point in my life. That would not have been me saying never, and she didn't tell me how old her other son is, but depending on his age, I would have possibly been willing to meet him at least. The fact that she tried to force her hand has left a really sour taste in my mouth and made the whole thing icky. I think I've decided I'm going to write her a final message about how I didn't appreciate being told I would only be allowed that information if I met up with her and discussed a relationship with her. I think I'll say it comes across as manipulative, and that is what put the final nail in the coffin that I certainly don't want anything to do with her. But does that seem like too much? I'm not going overboard by saying that to her, am I? Update. So after this advice and some serious thinking, I decided to talk to my biological mom again, hoping that maybe if I explained myself better, she'd understand where I was coming from. Unfortunately, things went downhill fast. Instead of trying to meet me halfway, she just got more manipulative, insisting that I was being selfish for not wanting to meet her in person. She refused to give me any information unless I agreed to her terms, which was a hard no for me. I've come to realize that I was pretty naive to think my biological family might be decent people after everything. I mean, I was removed from their care for a reason, but I guess a part of me wanted to believe that people can change. Looking back, I feel kind of dumb for even starting this whole journey. It's brought up a lot of emotions that I wasn't really prepared to deal with, and to be honest, I'm feeling pretty down about the whole situation. And as for my best friend, well, that's another disappointment. She didn't just side with my biological mom initially, she's been unsupportive throughout this whole mess. Even after I told her about the latest conversation, she couldn't really understand why I was so upset. She kept saying that I should just give them a chance and not be so harsh. It's like she doesn't get how hard this is for me, and I'm starting to feel like she never really did. It's tough because I've always considered her one of my closest friends, but right now, I'm not sure she's someone I can rely on. After all this, I decided to sit down with my adoptive parents and talk everything over with them. I hadn't really opened up to them about how deeply this was affecting me, but they were amazing, as always. They were upset when they heard how my biological mom was acting, and they reassured me that none of this is my fault. They reminded me that there's a reason I was removed from that situation, and it's not on me to fix it or make things right with people who clearly have not changed. Talking with them made me realize just how lucky I am to have them. They've been there for me every step of the way, and they made it clear that whatever happens, they're my real family, the ones who have loved and supported me no matter what. It's hard not to feel down after everything that's happened, but having them in my corner makes it a bit easier to cope. Honestly, I regret even doing this whole DNA thing. It's brought up more pain than I expected, and I can't help but wish I had just left the past where it belongs. But at the same time, I'm grateful that it's reminded me of how blessed I am to have my adoptive parents. They're the ones who have always been there for me, and I couldn't ask for a better family. So that's where I'm at. I'm gonna focus on the people who care about me and let go of the rest. It's not easy, but I know I'm on the right path. Thanks to everyone who reached out. It's really helped me feel less alone in all of this. OP's biological mother being immediately ready to weaponize family information to get what she wanted was such a bad sign. OP handled this whole thing perfectly. Am I the jerk for asking my wife to spend all of her savings? I'm 34, male, married to the love of my life, a 33-year-old female. My wife is kind, nurturing, and highly motivated in her career. She does a lot for me at home since I work long hours. We got married 4 months ago after dating for 8 years. We're both easygoing, have the same sense of humor, and we rarely argue. I make about 4 times more money than she does. I'm in healthcare, but she also has a good salary. Since I earn more, I tend to pay for most things like dinners, weekend trips, and shopping, which I absolutely don't mind. For bigger purchases, we split the cost proportionally to our incomes. She usually covers 25% of the rent and groceries and occasionally offers to pay for dinners and dates. She's very close with her 4 best friends who are great people. They're practically inseparable and talk daily in group chats, which I'm fine with. Everyone needs a support system, and I have similar friends. A few years ago, she and her friends started a joint savings account to invest in something together. Each of them has been contributing a few $100s per month. While I didn't love the idea initially and expressed my concerns, she was adamant about it. At the time, we weren't hurting for money, so I ultimately accepted it as her decision. Now that we're looking to buy a home in one of the most expensive real estate markets in the US, she mentioned that she doesn't have much in her own savings because $20,000 of her money is tied up in this joint account with her friends. Over the past year, they've been advised by 2 financial advisors that having 5 people invest together in real estate, stocks, or a business isn't a great idea. They also recommended splitting the funds into 5 separate accounts since the current account is under one friend's name, which could have tax implications given the $100,000 total. The homes we're considering require a down payment of around $60,000 to $70,000. I'm willing to put nearly all of my savings, $50,000, towards it. So I suggested she withdraw her money from the joint account to help with the down payment. I don't think it should be my responsibility alone to cover this significant purchase. She got really upset with me and said, "I don't want to touch that money. I promised my friends it would be for investing together. We should look for a less expensive home, maybe a fixer-upper." She also said, "It would be easier for you to recoup the money since you make so much more." This was very frustrating for me, and I told her, "It's unfair that I have to spend nearly all of my savings while you don't. Your friend fund is stupid, and it's stupid not to use that money for our future home." So, am I the jerk for asking her to use her own cash from her friend's account, breaking that promise to her friends so we can buy a nice home together? Wait, so she and her friends have a shared savings account that they've been adding to together with the intent of eventually investing it as the money is currently just sitting there in one person's account? Not the jerk. That's ridiculous. I could see the value in having a shared bank account between close friends for the purpose of going on trips and vacations together, since you could just pull money for deposits instead of playing the Venmo game, but this is ridiculous, and it makes it seem like she cares more about planning for her future with her friends than with her own husband. Yikes. Also, maybe I just live somewhere really expensive, but I'm shocked that $60,000 to $70,000 isn't already the minimum down payment possible on a fixer-upper. Not the jerk, and I would seriously reconsider buying a house, or if you do, make her sign a post-nuptial. If you can pony up $50,000 and you have essentially been footing all the bills so she can save money with her friends, the sad part is that money is just sitting in an account not even being invested, and your wife and her other two friends have zero claim to any of the money unless their names are on the account too. Not the jerk. Married or not, I would not buy a house with someone who would rather have an uncertain investment fund with friends than help me with the down payment of our shared house, and considers my savings our savings and her savings her savings. Also, I don't fault you for calling the fund stupid because it is stupid, just like the financial planners have told them. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Life tip: if you have a financial IQ that's above single digit, don't marry someone who doesn't. My boyfriend just found out his ex-girlfriend of 9 years had his baby, and now he wants to keep it because I can't have kids. My boyfriend, who's 32, and I, 27 female, started dating 3 years ago. We met at a bar one night, and the rest was history. When I was 16, I was diagnosed with endometriosis, which can lead to infertility. Last year, when my boyfriend and I started dating, my doctor finally confirmed that my chances of getting pregnant are very low. It was really hard to come to terms with because, despite knowing it was a possibility, hearing it confirmed was a tough blow. My boyfriend and I both want kids, and we were supposed to start exploring alternative routes soon. However, it seems his dreams are finally coming true, and I hate it. My boyfriend had many girlfriends before me, and a lot of them still run in the same social circles. One girl, who I'll call Maya, who's 33, dated him until about 5 months before I met him. They dated for 9 years, but they broke it off after she said she didn't want kids. I find that pretty ironic now. A month ago, my boyfriend received a very long email from Maya. In it, she stated that her son, who's 3, was his. She found out that she was pregnant a couple of months after they broke up. She had already moved out of the city by then, and because they had agreed to go completely no contact after the breakup, she never had the courage to tell him. She was planning on giving the baby up for adoption since she had never wanted kids, but once she held him, she knew she couldn't give him away. When my boyfriend told me, I was literally speechless. I could tell he was really excited. He kept babbling about setting up a nursery, taking a part of our paychecks to organize a trust for him, and then he started talking about strollers and clothes. I started to feel suffocated. Everything was moving so fast. I feel so ashamed about this, but as much as we want to conceive and have kids, ever since I found out, I felt sick. My boyfriend hasn't even gotten a paternity test done, despite my insistence. He's met the boy about 3 times now and keeps trying to show me photos, but I feel so disconnected from the whole situation. Whenever he talks to me about him or tries to show me photos, I just shut down. The worst part is that now he wants Maya and her son to move into our spare bedroom for the time being while he sorts everything out financially. We've hardly seen each other over the past month. He's been rushing between his accountant, his parents' house, Maya's house, and his lawyer to sort out making a new will. He hasn't even asked for a paternity test. And now his ex-girlfriend and their kid are moving into the room down the hall from me. I've been in this weird, out-of-body state ever since he told me, like I'm on autopilot, just sort of navigating life like a robot. Neither Maya nor my boyfriend have actually talked to me or asked how this is for me, but I fear it may be selfish for me to want that. I do want to see my boyfriend happy, and I can see just how happy he is with his son. It feels weird for me to say that, but I don't even feel like I'm his anymore, just sort of existing as a separate person in the house. I know it's selfish and conceited of me to feel weird about this, but I just don't even know how to begin to have a proper conversation with my boyfriend about it. Maya has refused to talk to me. I don't know. I'm honestly just tired. Of course he wants to be part of his son's life, but it's super weird that he wants them to move in. Your boyfriend can put aside some of his paycheck for his child. Your income doesn't get touched. He must get a paternity test. He's an idiot if he doesn't. No way in heck would I let them move into the spare bedroom. In all honesty, I'm guessing your next update will be that your boyfriend is cheating on you with Maya. Just leave him now. Make sure your finances are separated. Yeah, she's refusing to talk to you because she knows you'll clock her intentions. The minute she moves in, you'll be pushed out for the happy little family. I give it 2 months before they're hooking up. They only broke up because she didn't want to have kids. They now have a kid. Sorry, but you feel like an afterthought because you are. For her, you're the only thing standing in the way of her family. For him, you're just extra because now he has everything he wanted with the girl he didn't even want to leave. For them, things are fixed now. The kid fixed the reason for their split, so now they can be together. Start packing. Just leave him a note and be gone when he finally decides to come home. If you own the place together, have a lawyer reach out to settle your half of the property. Got fired, reported them to OSHA, and destroyed their family business. A while back, I was hired to be the marketing person for a family business, a fitness equipment liquidator founded by a gold medalist Olympian. Unfortunately, he had fallen into some mental health issues and had delegated his wife to take over the business. She didn't have the experience, but took the reins anyway, and she and her kids ran the place, albeit with some success. This is where I come in. The first red flag I should have noticed was that she was trying to do over the recruiter by wanting us to do a side deal. She wanted to pay me technically less, but still more than I would have gotten without the recruiter as the middle person. However, I was desperate, so I didn't think too much about it. The next thing was how deeply embedded the family aspect was in this business. There was basically no distinction between the employees and the family, with family affairs being wrapped up in their work environment too. Despite this, I was just happy to finally be in a space where I felt welcome, almost love-bombed by the CEO, who treated me like one of her own kids. Always lots of hugs and even kisses during good morning meetings as if we were coming downstairs for breakfast. Meetings ended up turning into brainstorming sessions because the CEO's kids and the workers were so scatterbrained and didn't want to commit to any specific plans of action. I was basically on my own when it came to marketing because nobody would actually participate when it came down to it. About a month or so in, I got ambushed by the CEO and her daughter, who was technically the operations person or something like that. Both of them wondered why we hadn't achieved as much as I had hoped, and when I explained that I didn't really receive much help or participation from anyone, suddenly it became all about blaming me for everything that was wrong. Why sales were down and why nothing was exponentially growing as she had hoped. I explained the actions I had taken and that I was doing exactly what I said I was going to do. It wasn't my fault nobody wanted to help when they said they would, but it didn't matter. They wanted me gone because they expected the moon in 3 weeks with zero budget and zero help from anyone else. So I just left. I want to add that I did a lot while I was there. I automated many of their processes that they were doing by hand, set up a Salesforce and Slack, handled Zendesk, and established a ticketing system. I even automated a lot of POS processes so that everything from card tap to accounting was smooth and seamless. I made tons of things very efficient for them and improved productivity while I was there. But none of that mattered, of course. They wanted double the sales from basically just social media posting and nothing else. While I was there, I documented tons of OSHA violations, exposed wires where customers would walk, ADA violations, customer safety violations, forklifts operated with zero certification and no protective equipment, employees standing on top of the forks just to reach the warehouse ceiling with no safety measures, structural violations, you name it. They did landlord special type fixes and often left things in worse states than before. I made the call and sent OSHA photos of what I had documented, which I had only done in case I needed to use them. I never actually expected it to come to that, but it did. After talking with them, it was explained to me that it would take months to get actions taken, even with evidence. The penalties for the violations I had evidence for were financially crippling fines that I knew they wouldn't be able to handle. After months of checking every now and then, I got confirmation that action was taken. A couple of months later, I drove past the warehouse and showroom and saw that it was abandoned. Broken letters, overgrown grass in the parking lot, boarded up windows and doors, for lease, completely gone and dilapidated. While I was placing those calls, I was also reaching out to my realtor friend, who's super good at what she does. I told her that we should time it right so that after these fines and penalties, she could drop literature off at their door until they were convinced to sell. She didn't do it in time, but she did catch wind that the house had been sold and it sold fast. Their website was 404'd and they basically packed their bags and left. I still can't believe it worked, but sometimes in life, we have to accept that we are the karma someone has coming to them. Goodbye, Amy. Wherever you and your family left to, we're even. Karen steals my car on Christmas. I'm 16, female, and my dad's family comes from old money. His parents never approved of his relationship with my mother and never did even when she got pregnant. He didn't see me for the first 10 years of my life until my grandparents passed away. Before that, when I was 7, my mother started to date Melissa, my stepmom, who has a daughter named Grace who's 2 years older than me. She used to be mean to me because she had a dad and I didn't. Things got worse when I found out that I did have a dad, he just wasn't around. Her dad had to intervene to make her stop bullying me. 3 years after that, my dad contacted my mom, explained what happened, and we reconnected. Grace's changed too, because at the same time, her dad started to distance from them until he ended up moving 2 states away to be closer to his new wife's family when I turned 13. I remember that during the first few years, if my dad bought me something, he'd buy something for Grace too. Not as big or meaningful, but he never left her out. She usually threw fits at Christmas because he would buy me tech, phones, iPads, laptops, headphones, and only get her clothes. Pretty and good clothes, to be honest. This Christmas was the worst though. Since Grace has to move for uni next year, her mom wanted to bring her grandparents, uncles, cousins, and dad to celebrate. So she asked me to spend New Year's with my dad this year, and I agreed to. My dad got here a few days ago to drop off our gifts, which included a brand new car because now that Grace is moving, she can't drive me around anymore. I was honestly so happy and excited. When Grace and her mom arrived and saw the car, they thought it was for her, from her dad or grandparents, because she's the one leaving for college. But my mom kindly explained to them that my dad had dropped it off for me. They weren't happy about this, but the day went on. They were excited about the small party for Grace. This morning, my mom and Grace were with Grandpa dropping some stuff off, so it was only my stepmom and I. Around 10 a.m., Grace's dad called and said that he wouldn't be able to make it and that he wished her luck before hanging up. It was really messed up. My stepmom was so mad, and when I asked what I could do, she said that she'll show me and started taking all of my presents from underneath the Christmas tree. I was so confused, and when she took my keys, I asked what she thought she was doing. She said, "Grace doesn't need to feel like second best during this Christmas." I said that she couldn't take my things my dad gave me, and she only answered with a, "I'm your mom, I can do whatever I want," and hopped in my car and left. I called my mom to tell her what happened, and after that, I called my dad. He told my moms that if Melissa didn't give back my things, he'll report them as stolen, including my car, and while my mom is torn between us, Melissa and Grace said that I ruined Christmas because my stepmom might go to jail and that not everything is about me. Bruh. Yeah, that's a sad story, isn't it? Stepmom sounds like a monster. I hope she did go to jail. Maybe she'll run into Bubba while she's in there. Instant karma. Am I the jerk for refusing to give my stepdaughter her Christmas present from her grandparents if my son doesn't receive one as well? I, 31 female, have been married to Dan, 39 male, for 7 years and have Nick together, who's 4 male. Dan has a daughter, Mel, who's 11, whose mother passed during childbirth. We met when Mel was 1. Mel's grandparents, Tim and Kim, maternal, used to not be a part of our lives. They never supported my relationship with Dan. They told Mel I was trying to replace her, I didn't love her, and other comments. Dan decided to go no contact as he didn't like how they treated us in front of Mel and how Mel began replicating that behavior. Last Christmas, we all reconciled due to the world events occurring. During this time, Tim and Kim only brought presents for Mel and Dan. Me and my parents were also present, and we both bought presents for them, but it wasn't reciprocated. Nick noticed that his sister and dad got a present, but he didn't. I didn't like the behavior and knew as he got older it'll become more apparent, and I don't want him experiencing that. Me and Dan sat down with them to explain how we felt, but they just acted surprised. I suggested we lay down boundaries and how we'd like to approach any gift-giving holidays to be better prepared in the future. We agreed that for birthdays and Christmas, we'd give gifts to everyone, and it was the thought that counted. Throughout this year, Tim and Kim only bought gifts for Dan and Mel's birthday. My birthday was in March, and Nick was born in April, but we didn't receive anything, not even a card. Sent a text asking if everything was all right, but they said they were busy and wished us a happy birthday. For Kim's birthday, my parents let them stay in their second home so they could go on vacation. They took my parents up on that offer, yet when my parents' birthdays came up, they didn't receive a gift or a text. At this stage, we were all pretty frustrated, and my parents felt like they were being taken advantage of as Tim and Kim were only nice to them until after their holiday. Last week, Tim and Kim came to drop off presents for the kids. They dropped off 2 boxes, both labeled Mel. I texted, assuming they had accidentally written Mel's name twice and asked which was which, but they told me both were for Mel. I asked where Nick's present was, but they said they weren't giving him one. No explanation. I was fuming, so told Dan the situation before responding. We told them that we would not be giving Mel the presents from them unless Nick got one, as it wasn't fair and we had already agreed to gift everyone gifts. They claimed that wasn't fair and we were showing favoritism, and how could we withhold a gift from an innocent kid? I then said that I'd rewrap it and claim it was from Santa. They posted on Facebook about how I was favoring my kid and punishing their grandkid for no reason. This was met with criticism directed towards me. You're the jerk for this instance. Nick isn't related to them at all. These are Mel's maternal grandparents. Her mother passed during childbirth, and you are trying to cut her off from the rest of her mother's family because you want them to pay the toll of buying presents for you, your son, and your parents? That's unreasonable when their only family in your household is Mel. The comments about replacement, etc. were not acceptable, but you did not mention those as having continued or being the issue right now. Your issue is them not buying your entire family presents. As long as they're now cordial with you, that's really all you can ask for. It's so weird how hard you guys keep trying to force these folks to care about a kid they're not related to. Your son has grandparents and parents and doesn't need Tim and Kim. Mel has her dad and them. I don't know what kind of mom you are and would never assume you aren't a great one to her, but at the end of the day, her dad and them are her only biological family. Why would they want to buy a kid that isn't their family presents? Let them have their thing with Mel, and if it's with Mel only and you don't like that, don't contact them more than you have to. I don't mean to be rude, and I apologize if this upsets you, just my take. This set of grandparents have one grandchild living in your home. That grandchild is not your son. Though it would be nice to toss him a little something, they are under no obligation to. Do not cut Mel's maternal grandparents out of her life. They are a thread to her mom and any other extended family members. Mel deserves to know them as much as she wishes. Cut them off, and when Mel gets older, you will become the wicked stepmother who kept her from family and tried to erase all memories of her mother. It may not be what you actually do, but it is the way it will play out. Not everything in life is equal. Not everyone is related. Your son is old enough to have this gently explained. He's also old enough to be taught it is rude to demand gifts just because someone else is getting them. Have your husband explain this because you have not learned it either. You're the jerk. Mel's grandparents owe your son and you nothing but being civil towards you. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the grandparents? Please let us know. I'm surprised the people on Reddit were actually sticking up for the grandparents. Usually the people on Reddit are, Boyfriend makes me choose between him or my cat. First things first, I, 24 female, have been dating Kyle, 25 male, for 2 months now. He has started to spend the night. Kyle never grew up with pets, so my cat has been an adjustment to him, his words. My cat, Crumb, 4 male, is the most important aspect in my life right now. Like most cat parents, he rules the household. We are very close since I found him abandoned on the side of the road as a 3-month-old kitten and nursed him back to health. Crumb is very docile, but hasn't shown any affection or really interest in Kyle. I don't force it. Crumb does as he does. Lately, Kyle has been complaining about Crumb. I guess he walked into my bathroom to see Crumb rubbing his face against my toothbrush. I have one of the electric ones that stands. He was shocked and told me how disgusting it was. I laughed and said, "Yeah, that's not great." He demanded I get a new toothbrush, expensive, and I said no. I just put the toothbrush in a drawer. Next, Kyle says he doesn't like my nightly routine with Crumb. I give Crumb a kiss on the head, stomach, and then face before he goes to sleep. He sleeps on my bedside table in a cat bed. If I don't do this routine, he lays on me until I do. I know that's annoying, but that's how it has always been, and I love doing it. Well, Kyle says I am unhygienic because of this. He says Crumb is dirty. He's inside only, and I brush him every day. And even letting him sleep in the bedroom is gross and gets fur everywhere. It doesn't, but Kyle isn't even allergic, so I told him that I put the toothbrush away, but he told me that I took it as a joke and didn't punish Crumb. I tried to explain that you can't punish cats. nor would I want to in this scenario. But he wouldn't hear it. He then went on to say that me kissing Crumb is disgusting, especially his face, and he would never kiss me if I kissed Crumb again. He asked me to put Crumb outside the room when he's over or lock him in a crate. So I said, okay, bye. Not only is Crumb 10,000 times more important to me, but I laughed in Kyle's face about never kissing my cat again or keeping him locked up. This is where I may be the jerk. Kyle told me that I was ruining our future and how mean I am for laughing at his concerns. I felt guilty, so I asked a group of my friends and they were split. The pet owners laughed. The non-pet owners said I'm in the wrong for not making Kyle feel more comfortable. They said that Kyle wasn't asking me to get rid of Crumb, just compromising with him. They said I was being kinda gross and understand his concerns. Not the jerk. Everyone is different, and you are going to get various opinions. After my divorce and I started online dating, and I kept an eye out for profiles where the women had a pet photo. I skipped writing to anyone like that. I am allergic to most animals, if they are kept indoors. And if a woman has a photo of themselves with their pet on their profile, I knew that the pet would be an issue for me. I personally agree with him and the toothbrush, but this is your cat, and you have to find someone who you are compatible with. Just because you date someone doesn't mean you are compatible. That's the point of dating. You can see now that you two are just not compatible. Not the end of the world. It doesn't make either of you wrong either. Just not a match. OP. Thank you for this perspective. I guess I had just been nervous about dating since my last breakup. For some reason, I have this idea in my head that I have to make it work. Kyle is great in literally every other way, so it is sad. Kyle knew I had Crumb before we went on our first date. I also made it super clear how important Crumb is to me. He said he was cool with cats. Everyone sucks here. He sucks because he's got some pretty extreme expectations and is pressuring you. If he genuinely feels this way, he should make sure to date only people without pets. But you're also not looking great here. If you want to build a full, deep relationship with someone, you'll have to recognize that 1. It requires some sacrifices over time and trying to meet the other person's needs, even if you don't completely agree. And 2. That even some pet owners would say your situation is extreme and off-putting. And laughing in his face when he's trying to talk to you about something serious to him is just crappy. Reply. What is extreme and off-putting about her situation? Extreme. The cat is the most important aspect of her life, and there's little willingness to change. This isn't a good starting point for building a relationship with a human. She doesn't sound like she has the emotional bandwidth to connect because the cat is the hyper-focus. Yes, her significant other's expectations are ridiculous, but it doesn't sound as if there is really any room for change, no matter how reasonable someone might be. Off-putting. The cat is allowed on all surfaces, including bathroom and toothbrush contact. I assume that means kitchen too, which is just disgusting. Sleeps right next to her head or on her, is given his way if he makes noise or doesn't like a change in routine. If I were starting to date someone and these things were true, we'd be done. I've had several cats. I think they're amazing, but there are methods to help them stay off of your food prep and personal hygiene surfaces. I'm going to go against the grain here and say you're the jerk. I don't care that he's an indoor cat, and good for you by the way, that's really good. He still uses his tongue as toilet paper. What you're doing is quite gross, and pets need boundaries and discipline. I've owned 4 cats in the past, and I currently have 2 dogs. I get it. I love my animals, and I'm sure you do too. But your animals shouldn't be in charge of the house. You're the jerk. I've learned over the years that if a girl has a cat, she's cool to have fun with, if you know what I mean, but not to be with long term. Same thing if she has indoor dogs. If I walk in there and it smells like wet dog, I'm ghosting you ASAP. Yowza, what did Fluffy ever do to you? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Kyle? Please let us know. There's 2 types of people in this world. Those who love cats and those who forget to thumbs up our videos for YouTube's algorithm. I'm talking to you. Am I the jerk for calling out my mom about her gift-giving methods when I was a kid? We had our usual immediate family gathering for the gift opening and the kids enjoyed. My mom was recounting how she would always give me what I wanted, but she only stopped after I was grown and she changed religions. I did a double take and said, "You showed me what you'd gotten me, but I never actually got it." She argued she gave me what I wanted and had pictures to prove it. Now my mom had a habit of buying me what I wanted for Christmas, allowing me to take the wrapping off, take pictures of me with the gift, but then taking the actual present from me and putting it away, saying, "I got you this, but you're on punishment, so you can't have it now." Then I would never see it again. I'd ask for it months later, and she again would say I'm on punishment for whatever and couldn't even have it. She would keep these items and present them to me as an adult when she was cleaning out closets. It was a mean method and still upsets me when she gives me the items. I told her this and she denied it. My family was appalled. My mom then tried to backtrack and say she took them because I always broke them. I say, how can I break it if I never even got it? And you're giving me the pristine items as an adult. She didn't have an answer, so I let it go and we carried on. Later, she approached me and said I embarrassed her in front of the family and it was unfair. I apologized, but I didn't think it was fair to act like she had always given me what I wanted when she didn't. She's still quite upset with me. Am I the jerk for calling her out? Edit. I see a few asking why I'm still in contact with her. Honestly, because I'm soft and she's my mom. There was a couple of years I did go no contact and it was hard, but I used that time to find my footing emotionally. During that time, I met my hubby and his family and friends. That experience opened my eyes to how a healthy family functions. It was magical, for lack of a better term. They all accepted me with love and open arms. Once I had a real foundation to build on, we started our family. I'm low contact with my mom now, but I didn't want to deny her grandkids. We've discussed a lot of the things done over my childhood, and I've gotten similar responses from her. It hurt and sucked, but I feel I got what I needed off my chest, and instead of holding a grudge for something I can't change, just move forward within my own set boundaries. We have hiccups, but all in all, I'm okay. Not great, but okay. Thank you everyone for your kind words and advice. I really appreciate it. Edit 2. For those concerned about my kids, I have set boundaries with her about my kids. If there's an inkling of any treatment she gave me, she's gone. She knows this and has not tested it. I also don't leave her alone with them. I don't play about my babies. Not the jerk. So your mom would buy you a gift, take pictures of you unwrapping it, then take it away for some BS reason, probably to return it and get her money back? Yeah, that's going to catch up with you one day. OP. She didn't get the money back. She has given me items as an adult that I'd wanted when I was like 7 after she cleaned out her closets. Like, oh, here's that easy bake oven you wanted. I kept it all these years for you. Then I'm like, Mom, I'm 28. What am I gonna do with an easy bake now? I accidentally got a guest fired once. I am no longer in the game, laid off just before lockdown, but stick around this sub to remind myself what I miss and don't miss about the industry. I thought I would dust off a few of my tales from back in the day. I was working as the front office manager of a mid-level 162-room property. Around 7 a.m. shift change, I get a text from my overnight security. Is GM in today, or who's manager on duty? Me. GM is out of town, so it's a combo of chief engineer and me. I'm planning on being in around 9-ish, but chief should be there shortly. What's up? Security. Had to punt on a maintenance issue at midnight. No biggie. Left both of you a note. Didn't want to do a full report if I didn't have to. Let me know if you have questions. When I get to the hotel, I discover that we were sold out the previous night, and when our last guest checked into room 413, none of the lights in the bathroom were working. Security and audit stole some lamps from my office to get the guests some light in the bathroom. About 11, Chief lets me know he's going up to look at the lighting situation in 413. A few minutes later, he calls down to me to ask for details on the guest in 413. I pull up the reservation and I have a name. 2 registered guests on a 2-night stay checking out tomorrow. Chief tells me when he knocked on the door and spoke to the guy in the room, he was certain he smelled green. I told Chief to wait for me to come up and join him at the room. When we get there, dude bro is just stepping out of the room, eyes clearly glazed over. Hey, you weren't smoking anything in there, were you? No, man. It was my roommate. I was asleep, man. Well, I don't care who it was. I'm kicking you out of my hotel. Cops will be here in a half hour. I suggest you be gone by then. 45 minutes later, Chief and I go back to 413. Room's empty, so we start looking to make sure housekeeping isn't going to find anything they shouldn't be there. Chief calls to me from the bathroom. Hey, notice anything unexpected? I poke my head in to see what he's talking about and find him flipping the lights on and off. Seeing my puzzled look, he says, "Lights work, and your lamps aren't in here." We have a good laugh on our way down to our offices thinking we misread the note. Nope, both of us had a note saying the room with bathroom lamps was 413. I check with my front desk agent and she says the auditor told her 413. I call my security guard. She says she can't remember which room it was, but knew it was across from the elevator. Sure enough, room 314 checked in right around midnight, and Chief found my missing lamps. A few hours later, my desk agent calls saying there's a lady on the phone asking about some credit card charges. I take the call, and it's the boss of Dude Bro and his friend, asking why their card had charges for 2 nights plus almost $300 extra, and they had to call her to get their spending limit increased. I told her that it was because we kicked them out because we caught them smoking in the room, and charged them for the second night because the room was out of order, plus a $250 tax cleaning fee. Her response: I would like to apologize for the actions of my soon-to-be former employees. Reply: we had something similar happen. We had a long-term guest who worked for a construction company from a neighboring state here to oversee construction on a new Tesla showroom my town is getting. He was pretty much working remotely when he took the remotely part too far. His head office got a call from some subcontractors who said they hadn't seen the guy in weeks and needed him at the job site, so his office called us at the desk asking if we had seen him and to do a wellness check because they couldn't reach him on his phone. My supervisor asked me to double check the room number and I blurted out, "Oh, you mean the guy who only comes out of his room to buy 2 bottles of wine every night?" Not realizing my boss didn't put the call on hold. Well, the boss at his office heard my comment and immediately asked for a copy of his bill, including the incidental charges, and saw all the wine and beer charges. Next thing we saw was dude coming to the desk with all his luggage, saying he was leaving because he was let go. His company refused to pay his incidentals, and dude didn't have the $800 to cover what his company wouldn't, and he shut off his credit card, so we couldn't even try to charge it. So we ended up having to write it off as bad debt. Rigged a group assignment and getting the Polytech to pay me $500 as a result. It's late, and I just remembered the awesome malicious compliance on a group project for my business degree at Polytech about 9 years ago. Please forgive my memory, it was my second semester, and I've since gone on to complete postgrad. The paper was business computing. It was a compulsory paper for business students, think accounting, marketing, and management majors, and the information technology students, which was an entirely different degree, but both had this same core entry-level paper. I tried to get cross-credit for this paper based on my skills and programming qualification, but no joy. We were put into teams of 5. I found my notebook, and it says we had to deliver a presentation, website, social media profile on Twitter and Facebook, write a research report, and back that up with a spreadsheet containing charts. Yeah, basic crap. This assignment is worth 20% of our final grade, and another 5% was writing a reflection on what working as a group taught us. I'll circle back to that. Half of the assignment grade was not on our content or delivery, it was based on is having 30 or so marks to hand out to other team members based on their perceived performance. Maximum of 10 marks, or 10% of your final grade, could be given to another team member, I think. The marks in the rules are a bit hazy, but what we did isn't hazy at all. Sure enough, like any group project, 3 of us did all the work and 2 didn't even front, not even for their final deliverable of the presentation. Pity. If they had made our practice beforehand, they could have wised up to our plan. Myself and the 2 others worked out we could all award each other 10 points and the 2 project freeloaders whatever was left, but there was nothing to say we had to give them points, so we didn't. So sure enough, we all patted ourselves on the back, nailed the deliverables, and scored full marks on the assignment. The other 2 didn't even manage a passing grade and had to retake the paper the next semester. I didn't see those 2 students around after that. Remember that reflection? I wrote in mine about how the system could be rigged and people could get grades for doing nothing if they hadn't wised up to the system. That as a team, we voted strategically. Full marks. The absolute kicker, I finished the paper with a final grade of 99.5% and took out the top student award, along with a $500 top student prize. How about that, Mr. Dean of Business School, who said I didn't know enough about computers to get a cross credit? You now have to pay me $500. It was the second argument that year he had lost to me. Am I the jerk for getting a guy fired for confronting me in the lobby where my dad works? This happened last Thursday, by the way. My dad is one of the executives at a media tech company. Before lockdown, I, 16 male, was always there after school. It's a pretty big building, so some of the offices there are closed because people are working from home, so it's not so many people hanging in the lobby like before. My mom dropped me off there because my dad was in a meeting and we were gonna go eat lunch after. I'm there waiting in the lobby with my backpack, and this guy from across keeps looking at me. He's there with some other people. The lobby is big, so there's always others that are there on lunch break. Then he comes to me trying to be friendly at first. Then he asks if I work in the building. It's obvious I don't work there, so don't know why he asked. Everyone else is in suits with their security pass sticking out. I told him I'm waiting for someone. He says only employees are allowed in the lobby because of lockdown. It's obviously BS. They haven't made any rules like that. But he wouldn't leave me alone. The security guy that was at the front even told him so when he tried to ask him to escort me out. He looked annoyed by then and telling me that lots of homeless people have been coming in, lying about that too, so I should just leave already. Security at the desk told him I'm allowed to be there. It was back and forth for like almost 10 minutes. I'm already upset, so I told him to just buzz off already. When I told him who my dad was, he laughed like he didn't believe me. My dad texted me then that he's outside, so all I said was, whatever. In the car, my dad saw I was mad, and after I told him what had happened, he was asking me do I remember the guy's name, if he said what department he was from and what he was wearing. I just told him what I remembered. He ended up finding out who he was and called up his supervisor. They let the guy go. My dad says the guy should have known better than to lie or cause a scene like that in their building. He told me to drop it. I just didn't think they were gonna get that extreme with it. My dad was really mad about it. I keep thinking about it now, if I shouldn't have said anything at all. He was being a jerk, yeah, and I was mad. Does it make me a jerk that I helped him get fired though? Not the jerk. You didn't get him fired. He got himself fired. He was abrasive, ignored the security guard's assurance that you were supposed to be there, lied about company policy, and essentially called you a liar by laughing when you finally dropped your dad's name. I'm assuming you tried to avoid that because it totally feels like saying, "Don't you know who I am?" It was not your call and it wasn't your fault. That he got canned instead of written up suggests that he may have already been on thin ice. Am I the jerk for not removing butter from the breakfasts I make for my whole family? I, 16 female, live with my parents and my 2 older brothers. A couple of months ago, I decided I needed to gain some weight. I am technically underweight, and honestly I didn't really like the way I looked or felt. I found a bunch of ways to add some more calories into my diet, and one of those was actually eating breakfast. In the past, I rarely ate breakfast, and I never ate a breakfast that was a whole meal. So I started cooking myself breakfast every day. Not only is it delicious and helps me gain weight, but I also enjoy relaxing in the morning by cooking something. I make a lot of different things, but to give you an idea, this past week I've made waffles, breakfast burritos, egg sandwiches, and oatmeal. When I first started cooking breakfast, my parents and brothers, who work from home at the moment, asked me if I could make some for them too. I said sure because I was already cooking, so it didn't bother me. Since then, I've been making 5 portions of breakfast every morning, and everyone has been enjoying it. And I've gained 5 pounds. About a week ago though, my parents and my oldest brother went on a sort of a health kick. They decided they wanted to eat healthier and cut down on how much fat and sugar they were eating. That's not really what I need personally, but whatever, I don't care what they eat. They decided to swap out sugar with stevia, buy these healthy yogurts with no sugar, and swap out butter with margarine. They also decided that they wouldn't cook with fats anymore, they would just use Pam. My other brother and I don't follow any of these things. Personally, I think I'm healthy enough, and the amount of sugar and butter I eat isn't going to hurt me. So I still put sugar and butter into breakfast and cook with butter or oil too. Yesterday we were all eating breakfast and my dad asked me what was in the waffles, so I told him flour, butter, sugar, etc. He seemed surprised and asked why I didn't just use the stevia and margarine. I told him because I don't really like them and I'm trying to gain weight, so using low-calorie alternatives doesn't seem like the best idea. Then my dad asked me if I could just switch to Pam when I cooked stuff to reduce the calories a little. I told him absolutely not. Since then, my mom and other brother have tried convincing me. I've told them no several times, and now they're angry that I won't compromise. I told them if they wanted to use their low-calorie stuff, they could cook themselves. They think I'm being inconsiderate of their health and that I'm just being rude. My dad even went so far as to threaten to stop buying sugar and butter if I wouldn't be more considerate of them. I think that if I do compromise, eventually they'll ask me to swap out more and more stuff until I'm barely eating more than before. Am I the jerk? Am I the jerk for kicking out my in-laws? Christmas Eve, my wife, Sarah, and I hosted my mother-in-law, Jane, and father-in-law, Robert. Sarah and I are in our 40s, and the in-laws are near 70. Every time we have them over, I have to remind Robert not to feed our dog table scraps. We don't want to promote begging. We're trying to keep her weight healthy, and the dog has some allergies which require expensive shots. Each time I have to remind Robert not to feed the dog from the table. He laughs and stops. Christmas Eve, I catch him again. I ask him like usual. He laughs. Some 20 minutes later, I see him sneak a piece of chicken off his plate. We do not feed the dog chicken at all because we think that is one of her allergy triggers. I tell him again. I explain about the allergies, and he plays dumb with a smirk on his face. I am not happy. I leave to help Sarah in the kitchen clean up, and I look over, and he does it again. Don't know what he gave her. At this point, I'm seeing red. How dare you come into my house and continually disrespect me? It's not like it's just me. Sarah has gone through this previously on other nights we hosted. I simply walked over to the table and said, I guess that concludes Christmas Eve. Have a good night. Everyone's jaw hit the floor. We hadn't done presents yet or dessert, yada yada yada. I explained that I told him twice tonight. I felt disrespected multiple times. Sarah is upset with me because I made that decision without talking to her. I admit I was a jerk, but I've seen her mom and stepdad walk all over her before, and we had discussed this very dog feeding issue after previous dinners. She doesn't stand up to them, and it's always next time. I also have to admit, it isn't just the dog feeding issue. I had to hear this out-of-touch man talk an outdated view of the world. Poor people should just get better jobs, and a bunch of other stuff. I told Jane she can stay, but she wasn't going to take sides against her husband, and they drove off together. When I saw it was 3 against 1, I just retired for the night. Sarah didn't talk to me until Christmas morning. I had embarrassed her in front of her family. I should have kept the peace until another time. He's an old man and forgets. Also, her brother and sister-in-law allow their dogs to get scraps. I stopped her and told her I reminded him twice that night and about the smirk and how he waited for the 3rd time for my back to be turned. I also told her how awful it is to have dinner at her brother's house because their giant dogs have their head in your lap, slobbering on you. It's gross. She understood better, but still thought I should have consulted with her and waited until it wasn't a holiday. Since they had plans with us, they would have nowhere to go. It wasn't a big deal, and I went nuclear. Not the jerk. I do think you should have consulted with your wife first, but putting your beloved dog at risk and not respecting you or your house is not acceptable. Do not let internet opinions get to your head. Keep a cool mind and think things rationally, and try to see everyone's perspective, be they right or wrong. Good luck. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or father-in-law? Please let us know. I don't care how old you are. You go in someone's home and disrespect them, you're gonna get what you deserve. Boyfriend gets mad and destroys my Christmas ornament. So my boyfriend hates Christmas. He doesn't like giving or receiving gifts or any of the festive traditions. We've been together for 4 years, and he knows I love Christmas, so he plays along. Well, last night we agreed we'd take the tree down next week, but when we came downstairs today, he started taking everything down. His reasoning being, Christmas is over, and the tree takes up space. Now here's the thing. A lot of the ornaments we have are like family heirlooms. Most of them are older or the same age as me, 24, or were handmade by my deceased grandmother. My boyfriend started just tossing the ornaments on the table, which started stressing me out. I was telling him to stop, to calm down, or either move, and I'll put everything away. He was getting angry and started yelling at me because I'm trying to keep the tree up. Well, you probably guessed it. He threw an ornament and it broke. It was one of my grandmother's handmade ones. I took one look and just broke down, like ugly crying. He started getting more mad, telling me I'm being childish and stupid for getting upset about the tree. I feel like I'm the jerk because I started yelling at him to step away from the tree because he was going to break more ornaments. And when he wouldn't and kept calling me childish, I kept yelling at him and telling him that he's being a jerk. After he put everything away, he tried to talk to me, still telling me that I was being childish and stupid about the tree and ornaments. I get how it might be childish, but I don't have memories of my grandmother, but I have a picture, and growing up, whenever I was sad, I would hug and talk to her. I only have a small amount of jewelry or handmade ornaments or trinkets from her that are extremely special to me. So I don't know if I'm just being stupid and blew things up. Edit. The ornament is fixable. It was a handmade clay wreath, and luckily only part of the bow and the part you hang on the tree broke off, which I can fix. To all those showing concern, my boyfriend is never like this. He's always shown me, my belongings, and my family respect. He has no Christmas bad experiences from the past, and despite not liking Christmas, he has always put an effort into doing my Christmas traditions. That's partly why I was so confused on if I was the jerk, because this was so out of the normal from our relationship. He went upstairs for an hour, and when he came back, he apologized. He said he was getting stressed and frustrated about me yelling, and he wasn't being as careful as he should have because of it. He said it was really an accident and that he felt bad about breaking the ornament. I'm planning on having a discussion with him, as the way he handled the situation wasn't right, and we'll see how things go. Edit 2. Oh boy, so this is getting a lot of attention, which is why I'm adding a second edit. I had a headache and took a nap for a few hours. When I came back downstairs, my boyfriend sat with me and gave me a real apology. He said he handled the situation completely wrong and that it was entirely his fault, and that he never should have talked to me that way. He said he felt absolutely horrible about breaking the ornament, and he should have treated them better and stopped as soon as he saw me crying. He hasn't been feeling well the past couple of days and has been exhausted after spending the week with our family. On top of which we found out we have to get tested to see if we might be sick. He thinks he's just irritable because of that, which he said he knows isn't an excuse. I know many of you reached out and are worried about my safety, and I really appreciate that. My boyfriend has never mocked or made fun of my interests or traditions. He's always happy to participate and do things with me. He's always cared for my happiness and well-being and has always been supportive. He's never made me feel unsafe and has always settled any arguments by talking and communicating. This outburst was so out of the ordinary, which is why I was so confused. I think you need to throw out the boyfriend rather than the tree. There is just no excuse for this behavior. Absolutely none. So don't let him gaslight you into thinking you are somehow to blame here. For the sake of your Christmas spirit, your long-term happiness, and the safety of your precious ornaments, get out now. I'm not saying this lightly, but a man who can be so callous with things you hold dear isn't someone you should want in your life. Not the jerk. If my partner broke an irreplaceable item after being told to stop, then told me I was being childish, they'd be dumped before they had the chance to finish their sentence. Exactly. Sometimes accidents happen and things may be damaged or get broken, but there's a big difference between I was really careful and treating things that are important to my partner with care, but something happened, it was damaged, and I find this annoying and I'm not going to be careful and you're acting like a child because I ruined something precious to you. Not the jerk. He broke an irreplaceable family heirloom because of his carelessness and somehow thinks you're the one in the wrong? Are you really sure you want to be in a relationship with someone who has such lack of regard or respect for your feelings? Seriously, get away from this guy. This is red flag behavior. There's no point in trying to explain to him why you're upset and defend yourself against being childish. If he doesn't already know, as a grown man in his 20s, that if someone else's property is important to them, you don't treat it carelessly, and that if you do and break it, you should feel awful, then he will never understand it. Being careless and breaking your stuff was only half the problem. I'm way more troubled by him trying to bully you into feeling childish as opposed to being apologetic. He will never understand. You'll leave him and he will forever tell people you're crazy and be convinced you left him over an ornament. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. I just want to know who peed in this guy's eggnog. Your unnatural hair color violates our dress code. Fix it. Let me start off by saying that this did not happen to me, but rather to a cousin of mine who's 18 and a senior in high school. She told me the story and gave me permission to share it. So my cousin has a natural patch of white hair at the front of her otherwise dark head of hair. She's had this all her life, and it's gotten bigger as she's gotten older. She used to get teased a lot for it at school, until bleaching and dyeing the hair at the front of your head a different color than the rest of your hair became a trend, and now she blends right in with the other girls her age. The school she currently attends has a very strict dress code that includes no hair that is dyed unnatural colors and extreme hairstyles, and frowns heavily on dyed hair in general. When in-person classes resumed at her school, one of my cousin's teachers took one look at her hair and sent her to the principal's office, insisting my cousin's unnatural, extreme hair was in violation of the dress code and too distracting. despite the fact that she's never dyed or bleached any part of her hair in her life. My cousin insisted that this is the way her hair has always grown, but the principal was having none of it. She told my cousin, "When you come back tomorrow, I expect you to have dyed your hair back to its natural color, and don't dye it again. As long as you are at our school, you are to adhere to the dress code." My cousin smugly replied with, "Of course, I will comply with the dress code from now on." My cousin got some hair dye that was as close of a match to the hair on the rest of her head as possible. In order for it to blend in, she ended up dyeing all of her hair, not just the white streak. The next day when she walked in, the teacher complimented her on her natural hair and told her never to dye her hair again. Cue malicious compliance. As with anyone who dyes their hair, the roots eventually need to be touched up as the hair grows, but my cousin didn't bother with that. At first, nobody, at least none of the teachers or staff, batted an eyelid. It wasn't until her hair had grown maybe an inch or so that her teacher suddenly looked at her and barked, "What did we tell you about your hair? No unnatural colors or extreme hairstyles. We told you to dye it back to its natural color and not to dye it again. Go to the principal's office." My cousin did as she was told. The principal asked her why her hair looked the way it did. My cousin replied with, "Well, you told me to dye my hair back to its natural color and to never dye it again. So I did just that. I dyed my hair the color of the hair on most of my head to get rid of my white streak, which is how my hair naturally grows, and didn't dye it again. So now the roots are showing. I did exactly what you told me to do." The principal called her parents and told them to come pick their daughter up, explaining that due to her multiple violations of the school's dress code, she would be suspended. So they came to the school and brought the family photo album with them, which had pictures of my cousin at various stages of her life, all with the white patch in her hair. In addition, her father also has a white patch of hair on the side of his otherwise dark head of hair. It runs on his side of the family, so the principal reluctantly didn't end up suspending my cousin, but she did give her a warning that your extreme hair is still a distraction to the other students, and they are going to wonder why you're getting special treatment. Consider yourself lucky. So my cousin wasn't suspended and didn't get any more harassment from the school staff. Gradually, her hair returned to its natural, extreme color. She still continues to occasionally get disapproving looks from the school staff, but none of her classmates feel like she's getting special treatment and think it's cool that her hair naturally grows that way. My cousin says that she will not be returning to that school next semester and will be homeschooled instead. Am I the jerk for ruining my husband's Christmas? I'm female, 29, and my husband, male 33, is the breadwinner, and I'm a stay-at-home mom. We used to both work, but due to medical problems, I couldn't keep working. As a result, I don't have what they call fun money, or money to spend however I want. My husband gives me money only to spend on the house or the kids, but that's that. I might borrow money here and there, or try to figure something out if I needed essential stuff like hygiene products. This Christmas, my husband gave me $600 as my Christmas gift. I freaked out, thinking I now have to get him a decent gift to match his. So I went shopping and got him the most affordable thing on his wish list, which was a $180 pair of sneakers with his favorite color. I didn't show him the gift until we visited his parents' house for Christmas, and when it was time for gift opening, he opened the gift, saw the sneakers, and looked extremely upset, like he was about to blow up. I asked what's up, and he asked why, in the blue heck, I decided to waste money and get him sneakers, aka the cheapest gift on his wish list. I said it's all I could afford, and he literally lashed out and said, "BS, I gave you $600. That's about the right price for a new gaming console, and it was right there at the top of my wish list." He said it in front of his parents. It was so awkward. I felt so horrible, I wanted to disappear. But I apologized and said I was sorry, but I had other stuff I needed to buy, and money wasn't enough. He took it as in I was blaming him for not giving me enough money, and picked an argument with me about how wasteful and financially irresponsible I am, otherwise I wouldn't be struggling with money for so long. I disagreed and said I don't have a salary due to medical issues, not being irresponsible. Also told him he could get the gaming console himself since he has money, but he got all dramatic and ranted about how he wouldn't because then he'll be judged for getting anything for himself. His parents tried to get involved, but he straight up told me how disappointed he was and said that I ruined his Christmas, then went upstairs and avoided talking to me until we got back and the whole argument restarted. He kept repeating that he was disappointed and that I ruined Christmas for him, saying, "Good job messing up." even after I pointed out how rude it was of him to react like that in front of his parents. He's wanting an apology at the moment and is still upset about what I did. Am I the jerk? Edit. For the record, he used to own an Xbox, but it got broken like 3 years ago, and he didn't want to get himself a new one, saying that there are more important things to focus on. I get why he was disappointed, but I argued with him about the kids' gifts as well, since that matters too. Also, I bought gifts for family members, so I'm not sure if I was right to do that, knowing money is tight. My mother-in-law got an expensive gift from him, and so did the rest of the family. Not the jerk. I'm also the breadwinner for my family, and if I gave my significant other money as a gift, that would be her money. If she didn't spend a penny on me, I wouldn't be upset because it was her money. I also tell my significant other to pick whatever she wants for me for Christmas and take it directly out of the checking account, which she has full access to whenever she wants or needs it. You're 100% not the jerk in this situation, and I'm sorry you're going through that. Also, if $180 sneakers is wasteful spending, then a $600 gaming system definitely is also. Am I the jerk for going in my husband's safe without permission and ruining Christmas over a necklace? So, a month ago I found a necklace in my husband's safe. I wasn't trying to snoop, but I needed my passport, and he keeps it in there, and since he wasn't home, I got it myself. I assumed it was my Christmas present, since that's usually the type of thing he gives me for Christmas. Well, I didn't get the necklace for Christmas, so I was really curious about who it was for, so I asked him. He denied its existence, and when I insisted I had seen the necklace, he got angry and told me not to snoop in his office or safe again. He even said he would change the code as soon as we were home. I know what I saw, so I got angry too, and we had a huge fight. This all happened at my in-laws' house where we were spending the holidays. It pretty much ruined things for everyone since he was acting cold towards me the whole day, and even my in-laws noticed and kept asking me what had happened. I did tell my mother-in-law, who told me exactly who and what the necklace was for, which made me feel even worse about asking. It was for me, but not for Christmas. They have a family tradition that I didn't know about, and it was supposed to be a surprise. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. A normal, appropriate reaction between two adults to having a surprise ruined is saying something like, "Oh, bummer, that was supposed to be a surprise." Your husband's reaction is not normal nor appropriate. You are most definitely not the jerk, and you deserve an apology. Also, your husband needs to find a more appropriate place to hide gifts. The safe where you keep other important items is not that. Not the jerk, OP, but please keep your eyes open. This feels so much like he had bought it for someone else and only came up with the excuse of, "Oh, it's for you, but for later." If that happened to me, my first thought would be that he bought it for his mistress for Christmas, and when he found out you had seen it, he had to come up with some other occasion that will happen later so that he can either get it back from his mistress to regift it to you or buy you a new one. Now, naturally, I'm not saying this is exactly what it would be. It might be something innocent, but I'd say the odds for it being something bad, like a present for another woman, are unnervingly high. What did your mother-in-law say of the purpose of the necklace? Your description was so vague that there's nothing to steer my mind away from the thought that he did buy it for someone else and got his mother to lie for him. Not the jerk. Your husband handled this badly, really badly. You shouldn't have to ask to access your passport. That's unreasonable. I can see where your husband thought the safe was a good hiding spot, but it wasn't, and oh well. I also think it's reasonable you asked about the necklace. If my husband purchased a necklace valuable enough to put it in a safe and I didn't get it at the next holiday and neither did my mother-in-law, yeah, I'd ask. Your husband, however, is acting like you actually committed a crime by getting your passport from the safe that you had the code for, and his immediate reaction is to change the code so you no longer have access. I get he's upset that the surprise is ruined, but it was an accident and you're not at fault. His reaction is over the top, and he owes you an apology for his behavior. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. They should really make a Hallmark Christmas movie about this. They should, and I'd love to actually see it. Am I the jerk for proposing to my fiance at his family Christmas? My fiance, Jake, loves everything about Christmas and wintertime. We've talked a lot about marriage and are ready to get engaged, so I decided to take the plunge. It was our Christmas to spend with Jake's family, and his mom always goes way over the top with decorations, so it was like a winter wonderland, and it just seemed like the perfect place. During dinner, I got down on one knee and presented him with a wedding band. Jake's dad was pretty confused, but he is the old school type, and kept asking what was going on and if I was really proposing. I did anticipate that he would have some issues with a woman proposing. Jake's mom hushed him, so I thought she was on my side. We've had some issues in the past. Jake said yes, and I was over the moon. We celebrated with an amazing meal and family, and it was truly a magical night. Jake's dad did shut up when his mom told him to, but he seemed kind of uncomfortable the rest of the night and kept chuckling. I heard today that Jake's mom is furious, feels like I hijacked her dinner, and was ranting when we left that Christmas is about everyone, not about us, and she feels I used her by latching onto her celebration. She is something of an attention seeker and one-upper, and just that morning had been trying to make me jealous with the jewelry her husband got her. Apparently, she now is saying I have no respect, so I don't know if I was out of line. Generally, yes, you're the jerk to propose at someone else's event. That's rude unless you have permission. This was also a situation where you should be sure Jake was okay with a public proposal in front of his family. And she's calling the mom an attention seeker and one-upper. The irony is hilarious. This is kind of weird to me because this isn't like a wedding or even somebody else's birthday. It's not a day that belongs to somebody, it's Christmas. Famously, the biggest holiday of the year for a lot of people. I don't think the same etiquette applies. Like, yeah, understandable this went south, but most of the families I know would be delighted to be part of something like this. I know we see a lot of "I proposed at somebody else's major life event" posts here, and it's usually not cool, but I honestly think this is different. I also think OP should have checked in first, but this isn't equivalent to proposing at someone else's birthday, unless that person is Jesus. The day doesn't belong to someone. The dinner that OP specifically selected because a lot of someone else's work gets put into it does, though. She could have proposed anywhere else. Man, you are all over this thread. This seems to have struck a nerve. I saw somewhere else that OP wanted to take advantage of mother-in-law's decorations and whatnot. And yeah, that's tacky. But for me, Christmas is a family holiday. And yes, you'd want to do it at a family event to maximize that. That's what Christmas is about. Nobody in my family, or anyone else I know, stands on ceremony like this. For me, this would be adding celebration to celebration. To try and hold a holiday like Christmas hostage because you're hosting seems silly to me, but that's me. So I maintain that yeah, OP very much should have checked in. But if your attitude towards Christmas dinner is, I must be the center of attention as the host because this is my day, the way people are about birthdays and weddings, that's a little Scroogey. You're the one responding to my comment, my dude. Reddit fight! You okay? Sorry, I got a little excited. OP put no work into the decorations, made no effort to let them know, nothing. If you think Christmas is a family holiday, then the family should have agreed to have been a part of it and would have been perfectly fine within their rights to respectfully decline. Hold a holiday like Christmas hostage? You can't be serious. They're at a dinner hosted by his mom. She could have proposed anywhere else at any other time. Nobody's holding an entire holiday hostage. You're being willfully ignorant if you can't see the issue. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or mother-in-law? Please let us know. I think neither of them should be getting dessert, to be honest. Am I the jerk for arguing with the person at the DMV about my eye color? This is the stupidest thing ever, but here we go. My eyes are green and blue, and sometimes look gray depending on the lighting and whatever color I'm wearing. I used to just put blue for eye color, but about 10 years ago, I had a DMV employee change it to green after he told me that blue was not the predominant color. I've left it as green ever since, and it's never been an issue. Except now, it's suddenly an issue. A couple months ago, I moved to a new state and had to get a new license. They let my husband and me schedule back-to-back appointments and come in together. I filled out the application, handed it over, and waited while the person we had our appointment with looked over my husband's application. She was friendly with my husband and joked around with him about the process. When she got to me, her entire demeanor changed from happy and friendly to the stereotypical DMV employee. As she was inputting my application, she said, "I don't know who you're trying to fool, but your eyes aren't green. I'm going to have to change that." While I thought she was a bit rude about it, I said, "No problem, just switch it to blue." She looked at me like I was an idiot, obviously my interpretation, and said, "Your eyes are obviously brown to anyone who actually pays attention. I'm changing it to that." I told her that she could put blue or green, but not brown, because my eyes clearly aren't brown. We argued back and forth before she finally told me she was putting my eye color as brown, or I could get out without a new license. I said fine, whatever, and I got my new license with the wrong eye color. My husband let me vent in the car, and then we laughed about how stupid and inconsequential the whole thing was. Turns out, it's not actually inconsequential. My new job required a high security clearance, and the facility has very strict security protocols. I have to show both my badge and a non-expired photo ID every time I enter the building, both of which are scrutinized. I've been denied entry 6 times since getting my new ID because not only does the eye color printed on my license not match their records, it also doesn't match my eyes. My husband brought this whole ordeal up at Christmas dinner with my family as a funny story, and I mentioned that I had to explain to my supervisor what happened, and he was going to contact whoever was in charge at the DMV to get it fixed. My new corrected license was mailed to me 2 weeks later. Got it 3 days ago. My mom told me that I was a jerk because I probably got that poor girl fired, and she was just trying to do her job. I don't think I'm the jerk, but I also don't enjoy the thought of getting someone fired, and my mom is pretty adamant that I'm the biggest jerk in the world for getting someone fired before Christmas. So, am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the employee? Please let us know. She got herself fired. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I gave the customer exactly what they asked for. I used to work for a major telecom company in Western Canada, taking customer service phone calls. I had someone call in to set up service with our internet and television services. Internet was always pretty straightforward. It was just a matter of selecting their speed. TV was a bit more complicated. On the one hand, the service was not physically turned off at their house, and they already owned their own digital equipment, so we were able to do what is called a self-install. I just had to set up the account, add all their equipment and channels, and then post the order without creating a work ticket. But we hit a snag on the most complicated part of the process: channel selection. I was explaining that the 3-month introductory offer they had seen advertised only covered our base level package and what channels were included, and the customer said she wanted all of the channels. I explained that with the wide variety of channels we carried, that was not efficient or cheap, and offered to go over her family's needs, but she said she had to go out, and when she got back in an hour, she expected their service to be working. Well, the customer gets what the customer asks for. All the channels, HBO, Super Channel, and the International Rugby, Soccer, Cricket Network. Sure, all 4 exclusive channels at $25 a month each. Why wouldn't they want those? Every foreign language specialty channel. If that is what she asked for, that's what I would give her. When I was done, the total cost of the package was over $600 a month. I made sure to detail in the notes that the caller requested all channels, and when I advised against that, the customer declined to discuss their specific needs and disconnected the call, stating they expected their service on the same day. I even emailed her a list of the channels they were subscribed to. When the caller received the first bill, for nearly 2 months worth of service since we billed in advance, her husband called in irate. After reading my notes and coming to talk to me, my team leader struck a compromise that they would waive the minimum 1-month period for adding and removing a channel, but the customer still ended up being billed over $100 for the 1 week that they had all the channels. I got a verbal warning from my manager, my TL supervisor, to be more thorough in the future when discussing the caller's needs, but nothing else. How I was supposed to do that after they hung up the phone over the very idea of clarifying, I still to this day don't know. I shared an apartment with a roommate in the late 80s, and after having cable TV for a couple months, we agreed to split the cost of a pay-per-view New Year's Eve special program for the party we were having. The show was lame, but it was listed as only $20, so it wasn't a big loss. The big surprise was that our next bill showed the pay-per-view purchased at -$20, so our monthly bill was cheaper. Of course, we had to try again to see if it was a fluke. We ordered some pay-per-view boxing match, and it also credited our bill the price of the event. From that moment on, we carefully purchased enough pay-per-view events to nearly eliminate our monthly bill, and did this for the next 2 years before we moved out. Honestly, your manager shouldn't have warned you. What else were you supposed to do? Honestly, I'm at a loss as to what you could have done. Exactly. She said she wanted all the channels, even though OP tried warning her of how expensive and impractical that is. OP also offered to go over her family's needs to find which package was right for her family, but she refused to do so. So OP respected her request to have every channel. Honestly, if the husband should be mad at anyone, it should be at his wife, as she didn't specify that she actually wanted only certain channels. OP is not a mind reader, so of course they have to honor her request and mention it in their notes, which the manager should have read and understood why they did what they did. Karen gets upset with me because I ate too much at her Christmas dinner. As a child, whenever I was invited to people's houses, my mom told me it was etiquette to eat the food they made. She would always tell me to put a considerable amount and eat all of it since it would be rude not to. First, she said it would be wasting food, and second, it would seem as if I didn't enjoy the food, which is mean since a lot of effort was put into making it. I've always followed this rule and thought it was true. If I cooked a buttload of food and no one ate any of it, I'd be heartbroken. My boyfriend of 7 months invited me to his family Christmas dinner. I've met his parents very briefly, but nothing too formal. Anyway, we get to the food and I was pretty hungry and everything looked really amazing. I made sure to fill my plate, but not overfill, just equal amounts of everything on the table. I ate it all, and to be honest, was pretty stuffed. His mother then asked me if I wanted seconds. There was still a lot of food on the table. I took her up on the offer and put a bit more of the pasta salad on my plate. My boyfriend did give me a strange look, but I thought nothing of it at the time. Dinner comes, and I chose to eat a slice of cheesecake. We then had coffee, all sitting around the fire and telling funny stories. Everyone seemed like they were in a very good mood, and everything was great. After everything, I was honestly so happy because I was worried about dinner and meeting his parents, but I thought that everything went well. We left his parents' house in separate cars as I came directly from my parents' house to him. We reach my apartment, and I can tell he's totally ticked off. I ask him what's wrong, and he just blew up in my face, saying that I had no manners, telling me that he had never seen me eat as much as I did at his parents' house, and that it was very embarrassing. After further prying, he said that in his culture, when you eat a lot at a person's house, it's disrespectful because you should never go to a house on an empty stomach. He said it makes a person look desperate. He said on the car ride home, his mom was talking about how embarrassing and unmannered I was to eat so much. I told him that she told me to put seconds, and he said that's done to be a good hostess, but a guest should never take up that offer. I explained to him my reasoning, and he called that BS. I honestly feel terrible, but told him if he explained to me beforehand, I wouldn't have eaten so much. But he said he thought it was common knowledge. It's been 2 days, and neither of us will really talk until the other one apologizes. I know it's petty to not apologize, but I sincerely don't think I did anything wrong. But I guess that's why I'm here. Edit. I've been debating on whether revealing where my boyfriend is from. I have been receiving a lot of comments, so his family is Arab. I myself am Hispanic. Not the jerk. That's so toxic. You didn't even know about these cultural rules. I hate saying break up with him, but break up with him. You were just trying to be nice, and you enjoyed the food. And on top of that, he uses his culture as an excuse, but then disrespects what she learned growing up and thought was proper etiquette. He really should have told her beforehand. What a weird thing to assume that she would automatically know to eat only a little. I'm very curious what culture this is. In every culture I know of, basically to a universal point, the exact opposite is true. Pretty sure that this is just a weird household with weird expectations, not a cultural thing. And if it is some niche culture, it's their fault for not understanding that the vast majority of the world hopes and enjoys when guests love the food that they make, eat a lot, don't leave hungry, etc. My thoughts exactly. My husband is Egyptian, and when you go to my in-laws for dinner, they basically demand you stuff yourself. This past summer, my husband's aunt married a white guy, and my mother-in-law had them and us over for dinner. The new husband actually had to get a little annoyed and say, "Can I finish what I have?" because they kept putting more food on his already full plate. Not the jerk. That sounds like some impossible game to play where no one ever wins. Either you're rude for eating too much or rude for declining a host's offer of seconds. Throw the boyfriend and the whole family away. He set OP up for failure and then blames OP for failing on this weird custom. Red flags all around. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend and his family? Please let us know. I really hope you cut things off with this guy. Stay with him, and this is just a glimpse of what you'll be dealing with on a regular basis. My sister ruined our Christmas by announcing her pregnancy. Way worse than it sounds. I, 24 female, am the youngest of 4, and I've never been particularly close to my eldest sister Jenny, 37 female. She started dating her now ex-husband Sam, 38 male, when they were in high school, so he's pretty much been around my entire life. Sam is a really great guy. He was an older brother to me growing up, and my other sisters and I all have a great relationship with him. Jenny and Sam have 2 kids together, my nephew and niece, who are 8 and 5. About 3 years ago, Jenny and Sam's relationship completely fell apart and she left him and moved to a different city. I've heard both sides of the story, and I know I'm inherently biased against my sister because she left my ex-brother-in-law to raise 2 kids by himself. Things were pretty rough after she left, but we all pitched in and did our best to help with the kids. My sister and Sam eventually finalized their divorce, and she gave up custody of the kids and is very low contact with them. I know Sam blamed himself for her leaving because she had accused him of not loving her as much as he loved the kids, but the rest of the family were firmly on his side. He did eventually move on and started dating one of his close friends at the beginning of the year. Fast forward to 2 months ago, my sister moved back to our city with her new boyfriend. She's only been to see her kids once, supervised, and my niece almost didn't recognize her. My parents still wanted the opportunity to finally have Christmas as a complete family again. I thought the whole thing would be a disaster before it even began. I knew my ex-brother-in-law only planned to stay long enough to drop off the kids and say a quick hello to everyone else. In the 15-minute window he was at my parents' house, my sister announced that she was pregnant, and things went downhill after that. The kids were so confused, and my niece asked if the new baby would live with them. My sister laughed and said the baby would live with her and her new boyfriend. My ex-brother-in-law left with the kids in tow, and I kind of lost it. I yelled at my sister and called her selfish and cruel and a whole slew of insults. Anything I could come up with at that moment before storming out myself. My other sisters support my actions, but my parents are disappointed that I reacted that way and made a scene during Christmas. They're not demanding that I apologize or anything, but have put me on one heck of a guilt trip and want me to resolve things with my sister. I'm perfectly happy not being in contact with her given what she's put my niece and nephew through, but I do wonder if I reacted too harshly. Was I the jerk? Not the jerk. Your sister turned Christmas into a way to dunk on her ex and her own kids. The kids were so confused and asked my niece if the new baby would live with them. My sister laughed and said the baby would live with her and her boyfriend. This is the worst part. She told her own kids that their half-sibling wouldn't be staying with them and laughed at them. She's cruel and heartless. Definitely not the jerk. Seriously, how terrible of a person do you have to be to rub it in your own kids' faces that this new baby is wanted and they aren't? My heart breaks for those poor kids. OP, not the jerk. The fact that her kids automatically assumed that the baby would stay with them as though it's normal for moms to have kids and leave them. My heart truly hurts for them. I hope new boyfriend is a good guy. Although if he didn't watch that scene with a "what the heck have I done," he's probably not, because she seems like the type to do that more than once. Not the jerk. She was cruel to her kids for literally no reason. Watch her in 25 years ranting about "none of my kids care about me" and playing victim when she obviously couldn't care less about them now that they need a mom. OP. Not sure if she was intentionally trying to hurt them because I don't think she ever properly loved them and doesn't realize how much of an issue that is. She was definitely trying to rub it in my ex-brother-in-law's face and didn't care about them being collateral damage. I don't know which is worse, to be honest. I obviously haven't spoken to her since Christmas Eve, but I'll be visiting the kids later today. I just hope they'll get through this and know that none of it is their fault. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister? Please let us know. That sister sounds like a monster, to be honest. I think those babies will be much better off without her in their life. I do hope they end up with a good actual mother, though. Strange coworker still wears his wedding ring even though he's a widower. I called him out on it. Uh-oh. Hi. A couple of weeks ago, we had a new employee hired at the company. He's a good guy and a widower named James. He's 36. And to my knowledge, his wife passed 8 months ago. Me, female 32, and the other coworkers got along well with him. However, I noticed that he's still wearing his wedding band on his finger. It kind of confused me a bit, and I couldn't help but bring it up with him while on lunch break. We talked, and I pointed out that he was being misleading by still wearing his wedding band when he's a widower. He looked quite bothered by what I said, but I tried to explain that I think that he was giving people the wrong idea or impression about his relationship status since he's technically single and on his own right now. Don't want to sound cruel, but I'm speaking from technical angle. James said that he didn't give it much thought, meaning he doesn't care what people think, and that even if he wasn't wearing his wedding band and some woman approached him, he'd still turn them down since he's obviously not interested. For some reason, things got awkward and everyone stopped eating and just stared at James and me. I told him I don't know, but that really felt generally misleading of him, as in making people think he's in a relationship, married, when he's not, regardless of how he felt about being in a relationship. He got upset, called me rude, and said that I repeatedly disrespected his marriage and his late wife's memory with what I said, then took his stuff and walked away. My coworkers said regardless of who was right or wrong, though some said he overreacted, there was no reason for me to bring this up in the first place and caused a scene and make James upset with us, like now he's not speaking to me and others who sided with me. Am I the jerk? Did I overstep or did he overreact? This was just a conversation we were casually having with the other coworkers, and I didn't use any insensitive tones or anything. But we had a discussion and it suddenly turned into an argument. I tried to let things calm down, but the situation got out of my hand unexpectedly. You're the jerk. A wedding ring isn't a sign to others you aren't available. It's a commitment to a person you love. His wife might be gone, but if he's not ready to move on, then he's still committed to her. Your confusion about his status isn't his concern. OP, if you're reading this, you are one callous jerk. It's not up to you to determine how long it's acceptable for someone else to grieve or to police what they wear, jewelry, clothing, or otherwise. How dare you? Seriously, humongous, cold-hearted, unfeeling, socially inept jerk. OP is such a cold-hearted jerk. A wedding band isn't legal papers. It's not supposed to represent his technical, legal relationship status. It's a token of love and dedication to the person he married. He's not wearing it to let others know he's available. He's wearing it for her memory and to show he's still committed to her, to his wife who passed recently and who he's still grieving. OP massively overstepped James' boundaries. He can wear his wedding band anytime, anywhere, and for whatever reason. It still wouldn't be OP's business. Her telling him is super rude and inappropriate. It seems like she's interested in the coworker. Back down, OP. He's not interested in you. And even if he was, any attraction he had would be wiped out by you overstepping his boundaries. That was my first thought too, that OP's problem with the ring is that she can't hit on him because of it, that she is salty, he's not interested in her, he's not available. OP wants to consider him single and ready to mingle instead of widowed. She is salty, he's emotionally unavailable for her and hates to be reminded of it whenever she sees that ring. Hates that she can't just forget his wife ever existed, and hates he can't just forget his wife ever existed. Good news for the coworker is that now OP will never have a chance with him after this. OP just saved him from ever making the mistake of getting together with her. You're the jerk. I hope he goes to HR because of this. Not the jerk. Is it misleading for him to keep wearing that ring? Yeah, pretty much. But I still probably wouldn't have said anything about it. You do have a good point though. He needs to move on for his own mental health. He could also be missing out on new relationship opportunities because he refuses to move on, which is unfair to you and the other women who work there. Why didn't you shovel out my parking spots while you were shoveling yours? So a bit of backstory to set the stage. I live in a condo in a multi-unit residence. Each unit has 2 assigned parking spots, one right next to the building and the second a ways away in the middle of the lot. One of my downstairs neighbors is an elderly lady with around a 40-year-old son who lives with her. She parks next to the building, he parks in the spot in the center. She's not disabled, but is temporarily using a walker after slipping on some ice. I live by myself, so I just use my one spot near the building and let the second one sit vacant. So today it snowed, and we do have a plow that comes through. However, instead of moving my car, it's usually less disruptive to my life to just brush off my car and shovel the snow into the main thoroughfare for the plow to collect. I work from home, so I rarely drive. While I was out shoveling, this lady comes out and asks if I can clear her out as well. It's not much extra work, so I'm like, sure, I'll help you out. After clearing my car off and shoveling the snow around her car out into the main area, I start to head back upstairs. She comes out and asks why I didn't finish the job. I stare at her absently for a good 5 seconds as my brain struggles to process the question, before I finally manage, what job? She complains that I didn't brush her car off before shoveling her spot out, so if her son brushes the car off, it'll mean there's more snow on the ground, and then complains that I didn't do any work at all clearing her son's car. And to recap, yes, she said her son brushes the car off. At no point did she indicate she would do any work of any sort, only that her son would. Again, I understand she slipped on some ice, so maybe she was sore, but she wasn't disabled, and her son was perfectly capable himself. I know he has a job and drives and such, so why is any of this my concern? I lean on the shovel and stare at her for about 10 seconds, before she grows uncomfortable and asks, why are you staring like that? So I say, I live alone, own one car, shoveled myself out, and out of the kindness of my heart, cleared out your car so you can get in. You live with an adult son who owns his own vehicle. is perfectly capable of shoveling both himself and yourself out. You're complaining that I didn't do all the work despite zero stake in your situation, and you don't understand why I might be absolutely gobsmacked by all this? I could see the hamster wheel spinning, then her face brightens as if she had discovered a glaring loophole in some cosmic law that will compel me to do her bidding. But you have that second spot you never use. Why don't you just shovel that out so my son can use it? I say nothing more and continue to lean on my shovel with a deadpan expression. After another few moments, she turns around and wordlessly waddles back indoors. I'd like to think she realized she was acting like an idiot, but at least she recognized that I wasn't going to play ball. So yeah, this is going to be a fun winter, I'll bet. Reply: my husband got a snowblower for Christmas last year and did all the sidewalks on our side of the street. The neighbors at the end of the block expected him to go around the corner and do their long side, and insinuated that he could make up for it by doing their driveway instead. They actually came to our door to complain about the half-done job my husband did. My husband just asked if they wanted their money back and stared at them. They were at least embarrassed enough to walk away without a word. He stopped doing the whole block after that and only did the immediate neighbors. So you can imagine how irritated they all are now that we just got a foot of snow. Reply: reminds me of a few years ago when I owned a landscaping business. I cleaned quite a few houses in this HOA estate, expensive houses, so the people living there had no shortage on money. This old lady that lived next to one of my regular clients was a piece of work. We've had a few interactions that went less than stellar. One of them was the following. My client and her shared a piece of grass between their driveways that was split by their boundary wall on the inside but not on the sidewalk. So half the grass was my regular client's to maintain and half on her side was hers. I always mowed right up to her driveway, which was about 3x2 section of grass, just because it looked crappy if the grass was half cut. She stammered out one day at about the third time I was servicing the garden and proceeded to tear into me that I did a bad job. I was dumbstruck as my client was very happy and I had a high standard of work and always left his garden perfect. After tearing into me for about 40 seconds, I got a chance to ask her what she meant, and she said I only mow the one side of her driveway and not the other. I almost asked her to repeat herself to make sure I heard correctly. It took me a few more seconds to tell her that he actually pays me to do it, and that if she wants me to give her a quote, I could do so. She stammered on about how I have no respect for old people and that we should be doing things for them since we are young and they are old. I just turned around and walked away as I had nothing to say to her. There were a few others, like her bringing out her garden bags and just dumping them into my waste trailer. Her ratting me out to the HOA over making excessive noise, daytime between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m., accusing my employees of intimidating her and making her feel unsafe and stealing things out of her yard, etc. Most of my clients had a seat on the HOA committee, so they never believed any of her nonsense because they knew me and dealt with my guys weekly. Her complaints actually helped because they made the HOA aware of me and spread word of good work done, so more people signed up. Am I the jerk for asking my wife to wear contact lenses to an event? This happened a few weeks ago, but me, 30 male, my wife, who's 30 female, she's still upset about it, so I'm bringing this to Reddit. My company had a Christmas party a few weeks ago, and employees were allowed to bring their significant others. It was a fairly fancy event, and everyone was expected to dress up. When my wife came downstairs, ready to get in the car to go to the restaurant where the event was being held, she was wearing appropriate clothing for a fancy dinner, but she was wearing her glasses. I gently asked if she would mind putting on contact lenses just for the night, since this was a fancy event. She looked shocked and said she didn't understand why she would need to put on contacts. My wife has terrible eyesight and wears glasses every day, but will put on contacts if she's doing something like skiing or surfing or playing sports. But she also usually puts on contacts for special occasions, like the ones we're about to go to. I reminded her of this, and she said she didn't want to put contacts in and asked continuously if I'm unattracted to her when she wears glasses. But after some back and forth, she begrudgingly agreed to go put on the contacts. Well, when we got to the restaurant, coworkers and their significant others were walking around the room mingling, and my wife turned to me fuming. She immediately noticed several other women were wearing glasses, and she went off about how she couldn't believe that I had the audacity to force her to put on contacts when clearly no one at the event even cared. I guess me asking her to wear contacts led her to believe that no one else in the room would be wearing glasses, even though I never said that. I just wanted her to look her best at this important work event. I really don't get why this has blown up the way it has. This happened over 2 weeks ago, and my wife is still acting cold towards me and making remarks under her breath that I'm the jerk and that I don't find her attractive. I don't think I'm the jerk, and I think she's being ridiculous and insecure, but she will not let go of this. Am I the jerk? I just wanted her to look her best, which means she doesn't look her best in your opinion when she's wearing her glasses. You're the jerk. Seriously, OP's wife pays money to be able to better see his shallow self, and this is the reaction she gets? You're the jerk. Glasses are not part of a dress code, no matter how strict. Shallow is definitely the right word, and insecure. I find it ironic that he called her insecure when she's not bothered at all about wearing glasses, and he apparently is. And it's all about control, not what she feels comfortable wearing, but what he wants her to wear. Giant jerk. Not to mention that she had already probably spent hours picking an outfit, putting on makeup, doing hair, and then when she comes out in her full glam, instead of complimenting her on all the work she put in to make OP look better at his work function, he complains about her wearing glasses? That woman didn't even have to come, let alone dress up for OP, but she did it for him, and he complains. You're the jerk. You're accusing her of being insecure when you were so insecure you had the audacity to make her wear contacts to an event? Seriously? She's better than I am. I would have told you to buzz off and go alone. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Oh, you've got a lot to learn, buddy boy. Can you imagine if I asked Reddit boy to wear contacts to an event instead of his glasses? I wouldn't mind, to be honest. Oh, never mind. You will work this dangerous position without training. Leads to have fun talking to the union. My dad was visiting us for Christmas, and as usual, I got him to share some more stories about his youth, and he shared a time where he used malicious compliance to not only shut up one of his bosses and get him into trouble. Many years ago, back when Dad was a college student, he earned extra money for living expenses by working in a car manufacturing plant. The state at the time was a closed shop, which meant you had to join the union in order to work, unless you were in an executive position. One of the rules said union set up at Dad's workplace was that no employee could work certain positions unless they had been trained for it. This included positions such as forklift operator and trash compactor. This was included in the contract and was a no-break rule. Enter George, the manager, made-up name. Unlike many in this thread, George was actually a nice fellow, but to quote Joseph from It's a Wonderful Life, he has the IQ of a jackrabbit and didn't always think things through. One Saturday afternoon, Dad came into work when George pulled him aside. I need you to do me a favor, son. The trash compactor is jammed, and I need someone to crawl in and unjam it. You're the smallest of all of us, so it shouldn't be a problem for you. Now, not only had Dad not been trained for loading the trash compactor, but even he knew crawling in there would be a dumb idea. George, I haven't been trained for this position. George got all flustered and told him, just do it. Dad then got an idea for some malicious compliance. I'll do it, but is it okay if I ask one of the other guys to spot me and make sure I don't get squashed? George said, that'll be fine. Just make sure the job is done. Dad then headed to his union shop leader, Kenny, made-up name. Like George, Kenny was a decent fellow, but was very protective of his workers. Dad told Kenny what had happened and asked him to spot him. Cue Kenny turning at least 5 shades of purple before storming to George's office. Dad told me the whole floor went silent as Kenny unloaded on George for trying to make a poor college kid do something so dangerous, and that this will be recorded and written up. Kenny stormed out, leaving a frightened-looking George quaking in his steel-toed boots. The compactor ended up getting fixed without someone crawling into it, and George always asked if people were trained for positions before asking them to do it. Karen demands to use our hotel pool even though it's closed. Just for background info, I started working at this landmark hotel over the summer after being furloughed from a major hotel chain. It was my first time being a front desk agent, and I was so excited because this place is famous. I really wish I could identify this hotel because there's so much that needs to be said. I'm talking corrupt to the gills. I was really in awe when I started. I was getting tipped in champagne and 100s. Everyone I met at parties or just hanging out was pretty taken aback when I told them where I worked. But the magic started to wear off. I don't even know where to start. First and most importantly, the one and only hotel manager felt that she only needed to be present from 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. Let's call her Jen. Her supervising manager goes way back with the owner, friends from the old country, and doesn't believe in security or maintenance or anything that might be initially subtractive of profits, even if it's beneficial in the long run. Our hotel plus restaurant attracts the worst kinds of tourists. We're talking 500 restaurant covers on a weekend night. Some nice, but the majority are stuck-up people that are willing to pay premiums for mediocre food just to be seen at our property. Worst restaurant managers ever when I started. 2 of them, plus a few servers, were hauled out in cop cars after a few months of me being there, $20K each in fraud. Kitchen chefs go on crazy tirades targeting their staff. Constant complaints about the smell of mildew because Big Boss doesn't want to replace the AC. It doesn't even seem to work in some rooms. Numerous health code violations. The foulest, in my opinion, is that the custom duvets and throw pillows are not washed after each guest because Big Boss is too cheap to buy extras. Yet people still pay a starting price of $7.99 per night. There's so much more, but I want to focus on the story of me getting fired. Because I always worked PM, I suppose it was just my fate that I always got the worst customers. Anyway, my first impression of this guest didn't raise any red flags. Her check-in and payment was completed by AM. But it was my responsibility to give her the room key once her suite was ready. I was informed that she was in our restaurant enjoying lunch, so I thought I'd wait until she was done. But no, we'll call this restaurant manager Michael. He comes up and tells me the guest was upset about the restaurant in some way. He wants my help to recover. I say okay, I'll bring her room key to her now and throw in a comp bottle of Prosecco. She's super sweet to me. I didn't understand why Michael was sweating it. Fast forward to our dinner shift. Now I understand. We have a beautiful pool that serves as the centerpiece of our restaurant. Guests can't use said pool during dinner because, as mentioned, we're doing 500 covers. Guests know this. We tell them when they check in. Anyway, this guest was clearly mixing her alcohol with something because she really felt like it was appropriate for her and her friends to be in the pool in front of all of those people. Michael couldn't get her out. She basically lost it on him, so he came to me. I go down there and I put on my most polite tone and I inform her of the policy and I apologize for any confusion or miscommunication that may have occurred when she did her check-in. This jerk was not having it. "Forget you. I paid for this room, which means I can stay in this pool if I want. That's why I booked this room closest to the pool, as I paid so much I can be here when I want." She breaks a champagne flute, knocks her phone to the ground and just refuses to budge. And I said okay and walked away. I didn't know what to do, and with no security or manager on site, I did what I felt was most appropriate. I called the police department and asked them to send an officer at their convenience. Not an emergency, just send someone. Well, this woman didn't want to listen to me, and she sure didn't want to listen to the cops. But miraculously, they're able to get her out of the pool when one of her friends realizes this isn't a game. It's time to get out. The cops ask if I want them evicted, and I said no, which is kind of regrettable on my part. I'm upgrading a much kinder, sober guest to a bigger suite as I witness them all drunk stubble around the hotel until eventually finding their own room. Once I'm back at my desk, I get a call from the drunk guest yelling at me, saying that I embarrassed her and demanding a refund. She's too drunk to understand what she's saying in my opinion, so I politely hang up. So she comes down to my desk. She's yelling about wanting to leave and demanding a refund because I embarrassed her. I say, I can't offer you a refund for my position, but when the manager comes in, you're welcome to speak with her. In the meantime, I'd be happy to have my bellman assist you with your bags. This goes on for a good hour. She keeps going up to her room and circling back to my desk shouting the same crap, but still never following through and leaving. Then, on her final trip to my desk, she wants me to walk her to her room because she's lost and locked out. She was scary calm with crazy eyes. My instincts said heck no. I can see all of the rooms from my desk. I point to hers, which had the door wide open, and I say, "That's your room. I'm unable to help you at the moment." She just kept bugging me. But fortunately, I spot Michael, and as comeuppance for his hiding from the police and not taking any responsibility and really stepping in and helping me with the guest, I have him walk her to her room because I no longer felt safe. The anticlimactic ending. My boss Jen calls me the next day, my day off, to tell me that I'm being let go because I'm no longer a fit for the hotel. It's not working out. I knew it was because of last night, and I felt like absolute crap. My hands were tied. I would have been in trouble had they have been left to stay in the pool, and I'm clearly in trouble for not letting them stay, out of respect for our policy. Anyway, I'm really happy to say that the karmic universe has granted me a position at a true 5-star that takes measures to keep its workers safe, has 24/7 security, and there's always a manager on duty to help. It sucked being fired, But honestly, that crazy ride had to come to an end some kind of way. Am I the jerk for forcing my son to wait to marry his then high school girlfriend? I, female 50s, have two sons, Dan, who's 22, and Sam, who's 27. Dan started dating Fran in their junior year. Towards the end of the school year, Dan came to me and said he wanted to marry Fran. At the time, Dan had multiple college options, which he was going to decline to stay in our town and marry Fran. I obviously didn't support this. I wanted my son to go to college and knew he wanted that too, as he had always been ambitious. I told my son that he had his whole life ahead of him and he could get married later, but didn't need to rush it. I told him that if he went to college and waited, even just a year or two, I'd pay for his tuition. At the time, I didn't know how serious their relationship was, as they'd been dating for a little over a year and was scared it wouldn't work out and he'd waste this opportunity. My son happily accepted this offer and agreed with me that it would be best to wait. This year, my son graduated college but maintained a long-distance relationship with Fran, and they announced their engagement a couple months ago. We were all ecstatic about it. Sometime between then and now, my son told Fran that I was the reason he waited until now to propose. I wasn't aware until Christmas when, during dinner, Fran said she wanted to say something. She began saying I paid my son to not get married to her and actively tried to ruin their relationship. She then said she was blessed that evil hadn't won and couldn't wait to have a long and happy marriage. Everyone was silent and didn't really know what to say. My son approached me later to apologize and said she had twisted his words, but it's been constantly weighing on my mind as friends and family present all have different opinions. Edit. If my son had married Fran out of high school, he wouldn't have gone to college. My son chose to go to a school so far away, there were closer options, but he liked the school he chose. I will be showing Dan this thread and update if he responds. Fran currently works at her mother's bakery. She wants to be a stay-at-home mom once they get married and was waiting for Dan to come back home. Update. Dan and Fran have talked and cleared the air around this situation. Fran feels awful about what she said and realized she should have come and talked to me privately. This situation, however, brought up other issues between the two and their future, as Dan expressed to Fran he would like to go to law school. Fran wants them to start their life together and thinks it's unfair for Dan to make them wait 4+ years. Dan is currently home, and we will be dealing with this together. Thank you all for your advice. Dan has read this thread and is now feeling unsure about their relationship. Not the jerk. Your future daughter-in-law showed to the entire family that you were correct and that your son was wise to delay the marriage. By evil, did Fran mean stopping her from getting pregnant at 18 and raising a baby she's obviously not ready for? OP was correct. Fran was definitely not ready to get married at 18 and probably isn't even now. OP's son should rethink marrying her now or ever. Fran's treating her partner's mom like an obstacle to their love story, even though she's just looking out for them. Calling her mother-in-law evil might be the precursor to a very strained, potentially toxic mother-in-law/daughter-in-law relationship. Also, it was just an offer that OP willingly took them up on. So if she's going to be mad at anyone, she should be mad at her partner. He's the one that delayed their marriage. I think Fran is operating on the emotional level of a kid. Also, she doesn't dare get mad at the son/boyfriend/fiance because she would prove exactly what she is, a Karen in the making. So there has to be a target for her immature and childish behavior. It will not be a long and blessed marriage. I think the son will go ahead, the marriage will last maybe 7 years or so, there will be kids. There are always kids in these situations, as if to guarantee the greatest possible destructive return. And Fran will end up a bitter, divorced girl with a kid or two. That is my prediction. I just hope Fran pulls some sort of stunt that makes the son really see her for what she is and dump her. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Fran? Please let us know. I had a few friends who got married right out of high school. They're all divorced now and broke and unhappy and stuff. Don't lie to tech support. At my previous job, I worked on the business support desk. One of the products we offered was a SIM/data management service. Basically, you would buy a block of data, say 100 gigabytes per month, and however many SIM cards you needed. Then you can assign data to SIM cards as needed via the customer portal. We weren't the actual cellular network provider, we just sold data and SIMs on their network. We would often receive tickets regarding SIM cards not working. 90% of the time, it was a configuration issue. You needed to use the correct APN to connect. Other issues were signal problems and faulty devices, not the SIM cards themselves. They don't just suddenly become faulty, bar the odd dud from the factory. On this particular day, I received an urgent ticket first thing in the morning about a SIM that was offline and not reachable. The tech who logged it was very insistent that this was an urgent issue and wanted constant updates. I checked from our portal and could see that the SIM still had data assigned, so it was not a simple issue of running out of the assigned data. Our first response in this sort of situation is to have the user check the physical SIM, take it out and reinsert it, and confirm that the correct APN was in use. Our terms and conditions firmly state that this is the user's responsibility, as the SIM could be anywhere in the country. Not long after asking the above, the tech responds that the checks have been done and asking for an ETA on resolution. At this point, I was pretty sure that they were lying and had not checked anything. I get a sixth sense about these things, but had no proof. At this point, our next option is to have the cellular network provider check the SIM, which takes at least a few hours. With the tech continuing to hound me, I ended up escalating the call with the provider, who confirmed that there were no issues in the area and that the SIM was offline. By now, it was mid-afternoon, and I was getting very annoyed with how the tech kept asking for escalations and ETAs when I knew they were lying about performing the requested checks from their side. If they had done the checks, this would mean that the SIM card just failed after working for months. That just didn't happen. I decided that it was time to comply with the tech's request to expedite the issue. I drafted an email confirming 1. The tech had performed the requested checks. 2. The cellular network could not find any issues. 3. The SIM had sufficient data available. 4. The next step was a SIM swap, which I would ensure was done immediately. As soon as the email was sent, I called the individual responsible for SIM swaps, and by the end of the call, the swap was complete. For those that don't know, a SIM swap is irreversible and renders the old SIM completely unusable. Shortly after, the tech's manager got involved and asked us to postpone the SIM swap as they wanted to check the device on site, confirming my suspicion that this was never done. I replied that the tech had informed us that all the on-site checks were done already and that the SIM swap was expedited due to his insistence. Turns out that the SIM was in some networking equipment in a mine in a remote province of the country. The tech's company now had to send someone to our office to pick up the new SIM, then drive all the way to a remote mine to replace it, potentially a 2-day job. I'm not sure if the tech received any disciplinary action, but he never asked to escalate a SIM issue ever again. There was no fallout for us as we were covered by the terms and conditions. Edit. As some commenters have noted, technically SIM swaps can be reversed. However, we did not offer this, most likely as the network provider did not allow it. Reply. The trick I learned is to ask them a question about whatever it is you want to check. Example, use, is your copier plugged directly into the wall or a surge protector? And if the latter, tell me how many lights and of what color are showing, as opposed to, is your machine plugged in? The former gets them to plug the machine in and resolves the problem. The latter gets a belligerent customer who knows for sure the machine is plugged in and has to have a tech drive 3 hours to plug in the machine. Am I the jerk for not sharing my daughter's university fund with my stepson? My husband and I are a couple in our 40s. We've been married for 10 years now. We both have 17-year-old kids. He has a son with his ex-wife and me a daughter from my husband who passed. When we married, we chose to keep a portion of our finances separate due to both having kids already, previous real estate investments, and he having expenses like alimony and child support payments. We do combine our incomes for our mortgage and household expenses, our retirement, major purchases, etc. The college funds we have set up for our kids have always been part of our separate finances, and as a result, neither one of us have had terribly in-depth discussions with the other regarding the amount put into each kid's fund. I never expected both kids' funds to be penny for a penny equal, but I did expect them to be closer than what I recently discovered. Both kids have now applied to and both been accepted to university as it's their senior year. Now that a majority of scholarships are in, tuition and housing etc. are more concrete for each of their school options. We've started the specifics of the budget conversations. My daughter's college/graduation fund is worth roughly $150,000, while my stepson has approximately a $15,000 amount. Here's where the argument happened. With her scholarships, my daughter will have more than enough for undergraduate school and likely her graduate work as well, assuming she maintains her traditionally good grades. In fact, she'll likely have a good bit left over. Fine, I say, she can use it for a down payment on a home, whatever. After scholarships and the $15K from his dad, my stepson will still owe for undergrad. My husband feels like we should just combine the funds. When we married, we very specifically kept certain things separate, and this was one of them. So I can't help but feel unwilling to scrap that and mix things together now. It doesn't feel fair or right, but my husband thinks it's a jerk move not to give the kids the same thing. It's never been a problem when my stepson has had extras due to having another parent and household also contributing to his clothing, his car, his spending money, etc. But now, suddenly we have to be even. And just to be clear, being even actually means giving my stepson even more of the money due to the fact that my daughter's scholarships are more comprehensive. The kids are close, and I'm sure my stepson will realize there's a difference in university money. But if my husband wanted to change things, I feel like this should have been brought up sooner than this. Am I the jerk? ATA since it's been asked. My late husband was quite young when he passed, so there was nothing much to speak of in the way of an inheritance or life insurance. And yes, to reiterate, my husband and I did discuss this prior to marriage and agreed to keep the kids' expenses as part of our separate accounts and finances. Not the jerk. Aside from the fact he only wants to combine now because you have more money than him, why can't/isn't his son's other parent contributing? Sucks for the son, but this is literally what his dad wanted and you obliged. OP, I don't know what his mother will be contributing, but I can't imagine it won't be much. She might surprise us all, but she's more of a spend now person rather than save for later. I just want to say, please do not do anything to split the money now. A, your daughter earned her scholarships. The fact that there will be excess money is due to her hard work. B, it sounds like she did without a lot, from not having a living second parent to not getting as much spending money and luxuries as a young teen. Don't penalize her for that now by taking what your sacrifices accumulated to. C, do not teach her that she has to sacrifice herself and her security to maintain a relationship with a man, her brother and father figure, or that her security and comfort shouldn't be her #1 priority. And D, college is a tough transition for a lot of kids. She could lose those scholarships if she falters her first semester or if she figures out this isn't the right school for her. Taking from her funds now puts additional pressure on her to never have a misstep or change in heart, major, or school because her financial security is at stake. This is a hill to die on. I don't usually recommend to stop communicating in a marriage, but this subject matter is closed. Agree with this 100%. You can't predict the future. Scholarships can be lost because of external things, not even just daughter not getting expected grades or changing schools. Funding can fall through. Some scholarships are only for first year and not future years. Don't give away her money because stepfather and ex-wife didn't plan accordingly. OP, look at it this way. It was convenient for your husband, whose son also had the support of a present mother. He did this knowing that it would separate your daughter from having any access to whatever your stepson received. Now that the shoe is on the other foot, he's had a change of mind. Not the jerk, OP. Your husband seems to be someone who cares more about his own personal convenience than being an actual partner in your marriage. This is his bed he made. He gets to lie in it. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. Now, I ain't saying he's a gold digger. Am I the jerk for kicking out my brother's girlfriend for how she behaved? Mike, 36 male, has been dating Tara, 32 female, for about a year. At this point, she should be a huge part of every holiday gathering, but I've heard complaints from Mike about how everyone in the family treats Tara like a stranger and doesn't want her in their homes. When I talked to people about it, they told me they aren't going to talk about it. It's a choice they have made. I can make my own choices about Tara and Mike, but they don't want her in their home at all. My sister, Claire, who's 28, sounded exhausted when I asked. I, 26 female, just moved back home in November and have not met Tara in person. I'm renting a townhouse with my husband, Greg, who's 30. Mike and Tara were out of town visiting her family most of November and December. Mike has my address. I've gotten 3 ring videos of Tara knocking on my door at weird times during the day. When I don't answer, she waited there a few times for up to 10 minutes. She texted me the last time about how I wasn't home, and I said we aren't home during the day, and if we are, then she needs to text us instead of just coming by. Greg said she seems a little intrusive, but he has sisters like that, so we just tried to look past it. On the 23rd, Mike and Tara texted me to say that they were in the area. Could they stop by? I said sure, we're having grilled cheese and tomato soup for lunch. Did they want a plate? Mike said absolutely. When Tara sees what we are having, she goes, "Oh, I don't want that. I will just make myself something else." I tell Mike we don't have anything else she can eat right now. Everything else is for another meal. Mike tells her to just eat what we have, and she plops down like a toddler. She then says she needs to use the bathroom. We show her the guest bathroom. She says there's no bathtub in there. Mike asks if she can use our main bathroom to take a shower. I tell him no. He gets upset. At this point, Greg and I are starting to get why Tara isn't welcome in people's homes. I'm about to make an excuse for them to leave when Tara comes out with my box of mud masks, which had been sitting on my bed. It was unopened. She tells me she loves this brand and she wants to use one right now. I tell her no. Greg takes the box out of her hand and says it might be time for them to leave, as we have somewhere we need to be. Mike and Tara leave. Later, I get a text from Mike asking what I thought of Tara. I told him politely I would love to see more of him if he wants to come by, but I don't think Tara and I would get on. He called me a jerk and told me to grow up. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Tara's home planet apparently never discovered the concept of boundaries. Not the jerk. If there's something mentally wrong with Tara outside of just being a blatant self-centered jerk, it's on Mike to warn people before bringing her over. At this point, even if it's just her being a self-centered jerk, Mike should warn people about how she acts before bringing her into their home. At this point, he knows that she will cause problems and he chooses to enable her. Not the jerk. Does she have a disability? I mean, how does asking to use the bathroom translate into I want to take a bath? I mean, even when I visit my parents, I don't go into their room. Seriously, boundaries. And to demand to use your products? Oh no. I'm glad they left. And he wants you to grow up? I would send a text with everything she did that was not appropriate and tell them you will grow up when she does. Am I the jerk for stopping sending my ex money because I'm getting married? So I, 29 female, I was born into a family who had a lot of money. I had the newest and most expensive things growing up, went to private school, had cars, expensive jewelry, and houses given to me as birthday and graduation gifts. I'm grateful that my parents didn't raise me to think lower of people because of money and stuff. So anyway, this incident involves me, my ex, 28 male, my current boyfriend, 25 male, my boyfriend's sister, 30 female, and my ex's boyfriend, 25 male. Me and my ex were together for a few years, and I ended up getting pregnant. I had the baby, but didn't really want it, and I broke up with him and let him have her full time. I sent over money to take care of them, but I didn't want to be involved. I've been dating my now boyfriend for almost 4 years, and I'm pregnant. This time I'm ready for a kid. We've been looking at rings and have been discussing him proposing, etc. I am close to my due date now, and I decided since I want my dream wedding, plus I want to get nice things for my kid and for myself, as a reward for going through these 9 months, that I would stop sending money to my ex for a while. I didn't want to want something for my wedding or my kid or me and not be able to get it. I stopped the payment and was talking about it to my boyfriend. He said that it was my money, so I get to decide what I do with it, but said that I have so much he couldn't possibly see how I could spend so much and run out. Well, his sister was over, and she told me that it was not okay at all. She told my boyfriend that it was a huge red flag that I would stop supporting my kid that I already have, so I could have my dream wedding. I told her not to talk about my relationship. Well, she knows my ex through me, but turns out she actually knows his boyfriend personally, and she decided to text him and warn him that I'm not going to be sending any more money without even asking me. I called her rude and selfish and told her to get out of my house. My boyfriend tried to calm things down, but I said he should have my side, and if he's going to go against me, he can also leave. He shut up and his sister left. I got a message from my ex's boyfriend saying that I should have told them, that I'm lucky that they didn't rely on that money to feed her and that they could support her on their own income. He said that my reasoning is messed up and I should have at least given them a heads up. I told him that he is not my kid's dad and should stop acting like one. I said that it feels like all he cares about is the money. I was upset and insinuated that he is only with X for my money. I didn't really mean it, I was just emotional. I've blocked him and my boyfriend's sister. I'm now super upset and stressed and worried about how this might affect my baby. Now, while I don't think I'm the jerk, but there are a few people who are mad at me. My boyfriend almost took his sister's side, and I'm just a hormonal mess right now, so I'm not 100% sure I'm being unbiased. So, am I the jerk? You're the jerk. How are you rich and a deadbeat? Take care of your kids. Weddings aren't an excuse to neglect your kids. Not only that, but she wasn't even going to tell her first child's father that she was going to stop sending money. But she thinks the stress of being a jerk and being called out for it might damage the baby she's about to deliver. You're the jerk big time. You create a kid, you support that kid until it can support itself, and you certainly don't cut off support with no warning. You're also entitled and selfish. After her rude response, I hope her ex and his boyfriend take her to the cleaners for child support. It seems like they were not intending to pursue it and just wanted her to understand that what she did was wrong. But after her little tantrum, I wouldn't be surprised if they were no longer interested in playing nice. I'd do it on principle. It's not their money, it's for their kid. Without some amazing reason like life-saving surgery being discussed beforehand, I'd take her to the cleaners too. You're the jerk. On what planet would deciding to stop paying your child support so you could have a huge lavish wedding not make you a jerk? Especially since you're apparently so loaded, you could do all that without ditching your responsibilities to your firstborn. Not to mention the weird comments about telling a man who has had way more of a hand in raising your kid than you have that he's not the parent. He's more of a parent than you've ever been. The man who has no idea what to get his wife. Many years ago, I worked in an old-fashioned department store, going from department to department depending where I needed help, if any. It was Christmas Eve, and I was on the jewelry counter. It was about 20 minutes until we closed, and this man comes jogging up to my counter, looking like he was being chased by something. When he reached the counter, he placed his hands onto it and tried to catch his breath. I was just about to ask him if he was alright when he manages to gasp out, "Present! Wife! Forgot!" So I went, "Oh dear, okay, do you have something in mind?" "No, I have no idea at all," he says, giving me a look, as if because I'm a female, I should know what his wife would want. I'm thinking to myself, great, one of those. What, do they think I can read minds? Out loud, I said, "Okay, does she wear gold or silver?" He gives me this really confused look before answering, Gold, I think." I'm already thinking, this is going to take forever. Does she like to wear rings? Only her wedding and engagement ring. Earrings? I don't think she has pierced ears, he mumbled thoughtfully. So, what about a necklace or a bracelet? His eyes light up at this suggestion. Yeah, one of those would be good. Do you know her birthstone? I asked hopefully. He shot me a confused look. What's a birthstone? I sighed mentally and thought, great, so now I have to explain this too. It's the gemstone assigned to your month of birth. If you tell me what month your wife was born, I can tell you what her stone is. Oh, that sounds great. Her birthday is in September. She's a sapphire then. I removed a gold bracelet with sapphires set in it from the case and placed it on the counter before him. This is classic bracelet. It has all its hallmarks and comes in the box. He hardly looked at it. Great, I'll take it. Do you do wrapping? No, not here. But if you ask the perfumery, they might be able to help you. But you'll need to make it quick. We close soon. He paid, grabbed the box, and dashed away towards perfumery. Our story, however, does not end here. A few days after Christmas, the man returned to the store with his wife. They came over to the counter, and the lady asked her husband, "Is this her?" He smiled and said, "Yup." She turned to me and smiled, showed me the bracelet, and said, "Thank you so much for helping my husband find me such a wonderful gift. I love it." And he said you were so helpful and kind to him that I just had to say thank you. To this day, that story makes me both laugh from the frazzled state of the husband and feel happy inside from knowing that the customer was so happy with their gift. Am I the jerk for canceling a playdate because of my son's attitude? This seems ridiculous, but I feel awful. I am a 28-year-old mom to my only kid, Zach, who's 7. This year has been pretty crazy in his social life, and he has friends over constantly. This doesn't bother me too much, but it has been a heck of a time managing Zach's attitude. Before, he was a helpful kid who really didn't get in much trouble. He would pick up his toys, keep his room tidy, and help me with chores. Nothing crazy. He would help me load the dishwasher, help me with the laundry, and sweep. I expected things to change a bit as he got older, but not this much. Now he constantly fights me on everything. For months, I would remind him to pick up and help with chores. This results in him fighting, saying it's not his job and he's not my maid. I always tell him it's his toys, his room, and his responsibility. Now, I do help. He picks up his room, I vacuum. He cleans up his toys, I help organize. I don't expect perfection. On to the issue. He was invited to his friend's house with my mother today. Him and Allie, who's 6, were going to play with her new Xbox for a few hours while my mom visited with her mom. No problem. He goes with my mom a few times a month. However, today I told him to pick up his toys in the living room and dining room. I couldn't walk through the house without tripping over something. I admit I was aggravated, and I did yell that I just cleaned the house last night, and this was ridiculous. I had been in the craft room most of the morning finishing up an order. He fought me, but we got the toys picked up. I then went to the bathroom by his room, and his room was trashed. You couldn't even see the floor. I called him in and told him it was unacceptable and to clean it. He started yelling. He threw toys at me and yelled that he's not my maid, that it's his room and I can't tell him what to do with it. I was angry and I told him he wasn't going to Allie's house today. This ended in screaming and tears. I held firm. My mom called me, telling me she would be on her way to get Zach soon. I told her sorry, but Zach was grounded for the day, and I explained what happened. She yelled at me, saying he's 7 and shouldn't be expected to clean or miss time with his friends. We got into an argument, and I hung up on her. Now her friend is texting me, saying she doesn't know if she wants her daughter around me, and she doesn't want Zach over anymore until I apologize to my mom and to Zach. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. My question is, where did he learn to use the "I'm not your maid" line? A kid who has generally been helpful with things like this doesn't just suddenly stop and start spouting crap like that. Find the adult or the kid who is rubbing off on him and put an end to it. Grandma and her friend, on the other hand, need to be told in no uncertain terms to butt out. Period. Your kid is not theirs, and you will be the one making the behavioral expectations known to him and handing out the punishments you see fit for not meeting those expectations. ETA. On the off chance he got the whole "not your maid" thing from something he watches online or TV or wherever, sit him down and explain to him why this is offensive and that by saying this, he's basically calling you his maid. Actually, shut him down and explain it anyway. He's 7 and should not be saying crap like that to anyone. Period. Not the jerk. You did the right thing. 7 is old enough to know what is right and what is wrong. He didn't clean his room, copped an attitude about it, and you didn't reward that behavior. Please stand firm against your mom and Allie's mom. They can do what they like, but you are raising your son right. His future husband or wife will appreciate your efforts. You got this, mama. Well, who do you think is a jerk? OP or Grandma and her friend? Please let us know. If I had ever spoken like that to my parents, I probably wouldn't be alive right now. Me neither, Karen. Me neither. Am I the jerk for not wanting to pay back a friend after they helped me out? 3 months ago, I, 21 female, was out running errands and I accidentally slammed my finger in the car door. It didn't break anything, but I was wearing acrylics and about 3 of them were ripped off and I needed a band-aid badly. My friend lived about 3 minutes away from where I was, so I called her and asked if I could come over for some help. She agreed and I raced over to her place as fast as I could. I parked close to her apartment and didn't even think about the parking situation. When my friend opened the door, she ushered me in, and it took about 10 minutes to get me cleaned up. Her roommate also came out to help, and we talked for 10 more minutes before I left. When I got to my car, I saw it had been booted. I called my friend, and she said, "Oh crap, I totally forgot about parking," and her roommate came out to help me. I called the company, and they informed me that it would cost $150 to take the boot off. I was completely distraught because I had no money left after grocery shopping, and I wasn't going to get paid for another week. My friend's roommate then offered to pay for the boot and said I could pay her back for it. I was grateful at the time, and I really appreciated it, but after everything was said and done, I thought that I was put in an unfair situation. Neither my friend or her roommate informed me at all about the parking the 20 minutes I was there, and I wasn't aware that parking was permitted because I had never stayed over before. The roommate didn't start hitting me up for the money until the beginning of the holidays, and I really didn't have it. She didn't demand it, but did ask every week, and it became extremely stressful for me. I talked to my boyfriend about this situation, and we agreed on a possible solution where I would pay her back for half, but the other half should be on them since they were the ones who didn't inform me about the parking situation. I mentioned this to my friend and her roommate, and they freaked out on me. The roommate even told me she would take me to small claims court if I didn't pay the full amount. I don't think what I asked for was unreasonable, and everyone in my life, boyfriend, parents, mutual friends, agree that this is a good solution. Am I the jerk? Edit. Roommate was her friend/acquaintance. We had hung out a few times with my other friend, but I didn't know her as well as my friend who I called. Edit. It wasn't no parking. It was regular parking that required a permit. Yes, there was signage, but I didn't see it because I was just looking at her apartment. I didn't have multiple violations that led to me being booted. It was a private parking, and it was a college town, so they will boot or tow at first violation. Edit. I Venmo'd her the $150. You're the jerk. It's not their job to ensure you park your car properly. It's your car, and if you've never stayed over, then you should have asked if it would be okay to leave it there. I understand you were in a bit of distress, but I find it rather crappy that your friend's roommate fronted the money for you, and not only are you making them chase for it, you're now thinking of not paying them back in full. I'd be so embarrassed if I was OP's friend. The experience alone would make me reevaluate our friendship, and I'd probably stop talking to her. No, but literally imagine helping your roommate's friend because you saw they were clearly in distress and being kind enough to remind, not demand the money, even after weeks, then getting blamed for not informing them of parking rules with visible signage. You're the jerk for going back on your word and changing your mind about paying back a debt. This is exactly it. It isn't about them warning about the parking, but an agreement for someone to front the money with the understanding the money would be paid back was made. You don't backtrack after accepting the money. You're the jerk. It's your car, your responsibility. Pay them back the full amount. They may even be willing to take smaller payments if you can't afford the full $150 at once. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the roommate that was trying to help her out? Please let us know. Might want to put up some no Karen signage in that parking lot as well. Boss fired me for being pregnant. I'm the one who gets paid in the end. The last year during lockdown had been a tough year for my family. My husband went from 6 figures supporting our family on his salary alone while we pocketed my entire salary to losing his job for 8 months. I work in political campaigning, which means I work on short-term contracts as an independent contractor. In other words, if we lose an election, I move on to the next race. I made a pretty good name for myself working on the lower levels of a campaign and moving up quickly. In my state this year, there were statewide elections and I caught a lucky break and ended up the campaign manager on a statewide race. I am the youngest campaign manager, 24 female, to run a statewide race in about the last 20 years. When the primary came up, we lost the election by 200 votes. While we lost the campaign, coming so close to winning and my age made me kind of a superstar in my field. After we lost, I had offers from all over the state for jobs. The problem is, I had just bought a house and wasn't looking to relocate, like you often have to do in politics. Or the positions weren't high enough, coming off being the top dog, as the higher positions were already filled. I got an offer to join a local campaign, so no relocation, but the salary was lower than what I was used to. I would, however, be the campaign manager again. However, I learned quickly my boss had a holier-than-thou personality. She made a lot of comments about how real women choose to feed their babies and have natural births. I would later be able to do neither, and it really messed with my emotional well-being. I don't have time to list all the red flags, but I was literally just waiting until my husband got a job to exit. The campaign hadn't been built out at all. There was no one other than the candidate. I ended up building out our entire team, consultant, fundraiser, staff, etc. Luckily, I've made a lot of powerful connections in my time. I signed my contract and sent it in with the salary we had agreed on with the stipulation that if we raised enough money, 3 months down the line, my salary would be raised, but could not be lowered at any point. Just a few weeks prior, I had also found out that I was pregnant, and my due date was the week of the election, and just a week after joining the campaign, I was also in a serious car accident. Luckily, my pregnancy was safe, but I herniated a disc in the car accident, and due to my pregnancy, there were very few things that could be done as far as helping my back or pain management. If I did my job right, that shouldn't be an issue because my job can essentially be handled from home and staff could do the rest. I had the team working in lockstep, and I was proud of the work I was doing, even though only about 10% of my views aligned with the campaign. Then we hit a snag. The candidate's husband got deployed to a rather dangerous place for a month, and she completely checked out. She stopped fundraising, which means that everything comes to a halt campaigning. She stopped putting in the legwork to win. We also lost our only lower staff member during this time. We knew she was worried about her husband, so no one on the team tried to push back very hard. Eventually, her husband came back and it was go time. There wasn't a minute to waste, and I was back to getting our operation working full speed. One day, she calls me up to tell me how 20 years ago her first job as a private school teacher was making as much money as I was now. I also live in an expensive DC suburb, not the backwoods where she grew up. I have multiple college degrees, and this job offers no benefits, unlike teaching. Not comparable at all. This is when I realized there might be a problem. A couple of weeks later, I told her I would need to take a step back from doing the other staff members' jobs, mostly door knocking, because of my injured back, but that we would hire someone. Unfortunately, due to the lack of fundraising, it made it hard to pay anyone else, and those duties fell on her. Campaign managers do not typically door knock. We had a team meeting with the entire team, and I started pressuring the candidate about all the things she wasn't doing, and there was a legitimate meltdown. She started yelling at me about how I wasn't doing my job, and my pregnancy wasn't her problem, and how I was the reason everything was failing, and then hung up on the entire team. This is where the malicious compliance comes in. After this, I decided to take a step back from doing all the duties that are typically handled by lower level staff and just focused on doing my job duties, which weren't being appreciated. I pretty much went radio silent, and she kept nitpicking at everything. Everyone on the campaign started to grow uneasy, but I told them to just hold out. Well, sure enough, she calls me up and says, "Since you are pregnant and can no longer door knock, you can either work for state minimum wage or you can find a new job." Mind you, she knew my husband had been out of work for 8 months and thought I had no options at this point. But what she didn't know is that my husband had gotten a job offer that exact day. So I stopped her right there and thanked her for the opportunity and told her I would be working my contractually obligated 30-day notice at my current salary and then leaving the campaign. She then began to scream at me about how she wasn't paying me a dime more and started listing off a list of issues she had with the way I was doing my job. I stopped her, thanked her once again, and told her all of my finishing tasks would be completed when I received payment for the last month I worked. Yes, she was a month behind on paying me, as well as payment for the 30-day notice that she was legally required to pay me whether I continued working or not. I waited a few hours and she never finalized my termination in writing, so I sent her a termination letter thanking her for the opportunity and once again repeating everything we had discussed on the phone. She sent me a nasty email again, reiterating that I wouldn't be paid for the previous month or 30 days and listed about 10 things that I had done to be terminated, including that I didn't wear makeup to work every day. I decided to send this email to the rest of the team, and sure enough, everyone quit except for the consultant. In 5 minutes, she lost everyone she had. Then a friend of mine offered me my dream job working for him, so all in all, it worked out in my favor within 5 minutes of being fired. Well, here's where things get tricky. I realized that my contract that obligates her to pay me for the 30 days notice isn't signed, and I'm done for. Well, sure enough, in her fit of rage, she starts emailing everyone, talking badly about me. The only problem is, I still have access to her campaign email, and I'm seeing every email she is sending. Emails saying that she wants to keep me on staff, but that I need to take less money, and that I shouldn't have been dishonest about my pregnancy. So clearly I wasn't doing my job that badly. She just wanted to pay a pregnant woman less. She also asks the consultant for a list of things that I did wrong on the campaign so that she will have cause not to pay me for my contract. I noticed that the consultant never replies to this email. He tells her that if she wants to fight it, to send him a copy of the contract and he will have a lawyer take a look at it. Well, sure enough, she sends him a signed copy of the contract, and once again, my contract is valid, and now she has to pay me my severance. She has given me every piece of ammunition I need to get paid at this point, as well as wage a discrimination suit for referencing my pregnancy as a reason for termination. I hire a lawyer. She continues to pester me about turning over all my work. The thing is, since I'm an independent contractor, I only owe her a final product if I get paid. I reiterate that she isn't getting anything until I've been paid, and she can take it up with my lawyer. She begins slandering me to everyone I know and continuing to send emails about me that I'm just collecting. She then starts calling every friend she has to bully me into giving her what she wants. My response to all of them is, talk to my lawyer. In one final-ditch effort, she has the consultant call me, begging me to turn over this stuff. The problem is that the consultant and I are personal friends, and he's really unhappy working for her, but has contractual obligations. I tell him to tell her the same thing, talk to my lawyer. 5 minutes later, I get a call back from him saying that she has fired him because he refuses to throw me under the bus and make up excuses for my termination when he believes I was wrongfully terminated. She fires him too, and now he's out of his obligations. He also tells me that the lawyer she sent the contract over to said to pay me. In a matter of 2 weeks, she is once again at square one with no one on her side. She's out of money and struggling. She finally emails me at 11 p.m. that she is willing to pay me. It's nighttime and I don't work for her anymore, so I decide I don't need to respond at that moment. Well, she starts calling me incessantly and texting me, all of which I'm ignoring. By the time I wake up in the morning, I have 20 texts and 5 missed calls. I tell her that I will need to talk to my lawyer at this point and I'll get back to her after he responds. Well, she goes nuclear. 20 minutes later, I get a call from the police. She's claiming I've been embezzling campaign funds and stealing her data. I have to get my lawyer on the phone and explain the whole situation and why this is a BS claim. I offer the bank account information for the funds she claimed I stole and prove that they were sitting right there in her account. She just doesn't know how to access them because I'm usually the one who does that. The police officer thinks she is nuts at this point, because she is, but then informs her that it's considered larceny to withhold my pay and asks me if I would like to press charges. I say, if she refused to pay, then yes. Within 2 days, I received a check in the mail with my payment, and I turn everything over. The funny thing is that my 30-day notice pay was actually more money than if I had finished out the contract with the reduced pay she wanted to give me. I got an extra $700 and didn't have to work for her for the remainder of the time. She ended up losing her election in a swing district by 15 points. The saddest part of this story is how the candidate is clearly not qualified to hold an elected job as a window washer and still only lost by 15 points. In other words, she lost 42% versus 58%, meaning even with all that toxic behavior, 42% of the electorate wanted her to represent them. Why am I not surprised to hear this lady was running for office? Cancel my bonus? Make me do 2 jobs? Enjoy the backwater you earned. So back in the 90s, I was working for a European-based financial firm. US offices were managed by Europeans with a regional head office in New York. Younger employees were generally underpaid and overworked, as in your first few years out of college, the promised reward was being promoted to a director position where your salary, perks, and bonus structure would really kick in. Kind of like how law firms promote their younger lawyers to partners after a long wait. As junior associates, the only good news was that we received the same 5 weeks of vacation per year, plus a few weeks of sick leave as our European counterparts, which for me meant a lot of camping and staycations during the summer since I didn't really make enough to travel to exotic or expensive locations. The offices were set up in a way where the business development, BD, directors each had a junior associate. The BD guys would generally network, schmooze, and travel around their territories to meet clients and new prospects. Once back in the office, the BD guys would dump their meeting notes on the desks of the junior associates to follow up and land the business, aka a Hunter-Skinner model. As a junior associate, I was pretty busy assisting a BD, so I routinely rolled over at least 2 weeks of vacation every year. I had worked at the firm for 3 years and was starting to get antsy for a promotion. Right after Thanksgiving, my boss in the West Coast office told me that I was being transferred and promoted to the Southeast office come the new year. I really had no interest in working in/living in the Southeast, but I wanted to advance my career. I rolled over my usual 2 weeks of vacation into the next year, so I was eligible for 7 weeks of vacation that year. After celebrating my New Year's with my family in California, I packed up my car and drove across the country. Once in the new office, I settled in and met my new boss, who promptly informed me that he wasn't actually promoting me to director, though I was being given the responsibilities of the role as he judged me to be too young, but was also told that if I demonstrated that I could do the job, I would be promoted next year. I was upset, but didn't have a choice other than moving back home and starting from scratch, so I agreed to it. I disliked my new boss instantly, as coworkers told me he was flaunting his management perks, which consisted of large allowances for housing and automobiles, which were paid for by sales production from employees like myself. Turned out he was related to a serving member of the board of directors back in Europe, which is how he got the job as a regional manager. Everyone knew he didn't have the skills to do our job, so he just collected fat checks, went to expensive restaurants with friends, and billed it to the company as client development, all the while leasing a new Mercedes every 2 years on the company's dime, while generally being a jerk to everyone who worked for him. During the first week, I also met my junior associate, Jeremy. We sat down and discussed some accounts that I had inherited that were in backwater locations none of the other directors wanted to visit. Jeremy was professional, but I got the distinct impression Jeremy hated me, though I didn't know why. I started traveling around to meet my clients and prospects over the next few weeks, usually spending at least 3 or 4 days on the road. Back in the office on Friday to go over follow-ups on business leads with Jeremy and execute whatever paperwork needed to be taken care of. About a month later, I returned from one of my trips and learned that Jeremy had quit. It turned out that he was mad that he had been passed over for the position that I had been given. I couldn't fault him, as I probably would have done the same thing. I asked my manager to hire someone else to back me up, but he was hesitant to do so, reasoning that my client portfolio was just starting out, so I could do both roles until it made sense to staff up. I pointed out that it would be hard to be an effective business development officer if I had no support system to help grow my client portfolio, but he chose not to listen, knowing that I had little recourse but to shut up. I spent the rest of the year working my butt off. This was right before email and internet were common, so executing business on the road was hard. Fax machines were the bane of my existence. Even though laptops were reserved for directors, my boss was kind enough, heavy sarcasm, to let me use a company laptop on which I would handle all of the paperwork to process client business from hotel business centers late at night or early in the morning, so I learned to live on 5 hours of sleep or to sleep on planes whenever I could. After dealing with problems from some irate clients, I eventually paid for my own personal cell phone. Not everyone had them in the mid-90s, and our directors had just started getting company paid phones that year. As I had to handle customers from the road, I just gave my personal cell number for clients to call so I could handle problems from the road. I landed a few big clients by a combination of luck and hard work, and got some solid referrals, which led to more referrals, so within a few months, I was gaining some serious momentum. Since I didn't have an associate to help me, that meant I spent the weekends and late nights back at the office handling paperwork, then back on the road during the week. I was so busy working both sides of the job that by December of that year, I hadn't taken my mandatory 2 weeks of vacation. I had some new clients that needed to be handled by year end, so I was granted a vacation waiver, meaning that my 7 weeks of vacation would roll over into the next year, adding up to 12 weeks of vacation plus sick time for the coming year. It was a big hassle for HR to process the waiver, but since I had produced a lot of new business, my manager was all too happy to order it done. I wasn't upset about working through year end, but I flew back and forth to California for Christmas on a 24-hour turnaround. I rationalized it, hoping that I would get paid the first big bonus of my career in a few months. At that time, European firms paid their bonuses in mid-April, while employees of the US-based firms got their bonuses by end of January. If you were planning on switching jobs early in the new year, working at a European firm meant that sometimes you left money on the table, aka golden handcuffs, so the timing of switching firms was important. I continued to work at my frenetic pace through April, taking no vacation as I was bringing in more and more clients and digging myself out of paperwork when I wasn't on the road. In the new year, we had some meetings about scorecards and sales goals, and I led my office in a few of the categories and was number 1 for overall production. Finally, in mid-April, my boss called me in and announced it was time to discuss my bonus and annual review. I eagerly sat down, very excited, because I was assuming my bonus would be equal to my base salary at least, if not double. He handed me a piece of paper, and it showed a number that was almost 90% less than I was expecting for my bonus. I literally laughed out loud and told him it was a little late for an April Fool's joke, but he wasn't smiling. He proceeded to tell me how proud he was of me, but that since I wasn't a director, the bonus that I received was the maximum amount he would give me, as there wasn't any more money in the budget. I sat there in shock for a while, then kept asking the same question in different ways. Basically, why did he do me over on my bonus? It was like talking to a brick wall. Despite pointing to the scorecard that he showed me as the best producer in the office, all the while having no junior associate, he wasn't having it. I was crushed, but then asked him if he was promoting me to director, since I had demonstrated that I could produce, hoping that title would be a gateway into the big payday the following year. He shook his head and replied, "Maybe next year if you prove this year wasn't a fluke." It was a gut punch. He also rationalized that while my review was positive, I had some flaws that I needed to work on, mainly that I didn't work very well in a team atmosphere. I reminded him that I was a team of 1, so there wasn't anybody on my team to complain about me. A switch finally flipped in my brain as I realized I had just gotten majorly done over and there was no changing the outcome. I told him that I was feeling ill and would be taking some sick days, so I got up and left his office. Coworkers said I looked as white as a ghost as I walked out of his office, so they knew something was wrong. I forwarded my incoming calls to his extension, packed up my important papers in case I decided to never come back, then headed to my apartment in a complete rage. I called my family and told them that I needed to come home for some much-deserved vacation, so after drinking myself senseless for 48 hours and forwarding all my calls to voicemail, I called into work the following Monday and told my boss I would be taking a vacation week. He was pretty angry about the short notice, as he'd been dealing with my irate clients contacting him about their problems since I couldn't be reached, and he didn't have much of a clue as to how to handle the paperwork necessary to do the job, so other associates were now being called in to help handle my workload. I flew home and made a few calls to people I'd worked with, hoping for some job leads. I managed to grab a lunch with an old associate who had left the firm, and he gave me some ideas and contacts, so I spent the rest of my vacation looking for a new job. I knew the timing sucked, so out of options, I went back to my job the following week. First day back, I looked at my HR data and realized that I still had 11 weeks of vacation to use that year, plus a few more weeks of sick leave. Around that time, there was a company-wide conference call to celebrate a big company milestone. I think the firm was 125 years old, but didn't care anymore. To celebrate the big anniversary, we were told we would be getting an extra week of vacation that year, meaning once again, I had 3 months of vacation in my account. As a high performer, I was also selected to spend a few weeks in New York during the summer and fall for some management training, so that meant additional time out of the office. The next month was a blur of looking at different vacation options for me to take that year. I had accrued a lot of hotel and rental car points and frequent flyer miles during the past year of traveling around, so I spent my days in the office doing as little client work as I could while spending the rest of my time on the phone with the frequent flyer and hotel points customer service reps, trying to squeeze as much vacation out of my miles and points as I could. By the end of May, I submitted my vacation requests, which detailed how I was going to take 3 months of vacation in the 7 remaining months of the year. I submitted the forms to HR, and within a day, my boss called me in to discuss my schedule, as he realized I was basically going to be gone for almost 2 weeks out of every month for the rest of the year. I was wrapping my vacations around federal and bank holidays whenever I could manage it. He told me that he was rejecting my vacation schedule since there wasn't anybody to cover my clients in my absence. I asked him to call in the HR rep into his office to have his stance officially on record. He objected, but I said I wouldn't discuss such matters without an HR rep present. HR was called in, and my boss told HR he was rejecting my vacation schedule, but HR responded that I was legally entitled to take the vacation days, so he couldn't reject the request. I also told him that, henceforth, I wouldn't be handling any of my customers from my personal cell phone if I was out of the office, so I would be forwarding my work phone to his when I was on vacation or doing business development trips. Also told him I was going to Europe on 2 different trips and would be unable to be contacted since I don't have a company-issued cell phone. He was upset, but knew that unless he promoted me to director and issued me a cell phone, he couldn't do anything about my new stance. After that, I only did business development in areas where I like to travel, and more importantly, vacation. Until that point, I had always said yes to any meetings in backwater locations if it represented a chance to land a new client. Having learned my lesson the hard way, I didn't want any new clients to begin with, and certainly none living in areas I didn't like to visit. Trips to Florida became common. If I was traveling, I would typically spend Monday to Wednesday making very infrequent sales calls. Most of my schedule was falsified with fake prospects, so I could spend afternoons playing golf or hanging out at hotel pools, trolling for ladies my age. Then would take off Thursday and Friday with vacation and sick days so I could hang out and have fun, using hotel points to extend my stays for free. Since I was still underpaid, I ate cheaply and learned to squeeze as much out of my trips for the least amount of money I could manage while still having fun. My boss was now irate with all of the customer calls coming to him, but he refused to hire an assistant for me, so I kept forwarding my line to his when I was out of the office. Whenever I was back in the office, pretty infrequently at this point, he would routinely lambaste me with verbal warnings about poor performance reviews, but I would just shrug my shoulders and tell him that maybe he was right not to promote me to director since I was such a disappointment. He was also upset because he had been commended for having such a high-producing office the year before, mostly courtesy of my efforts, and now he was getting a lot of heat from New York that his new client numbers were down. Since I had frequent flyer miles and hotel points, but not a lot of money, I backpacked through Europe on 2 different 2-week trips that summer, and also took a number of vacations back home, diligently following up on job leads on the West Coast that I cultivated whenever I was in the office. By October, I started to firm up some conversations with a prospective employer back in California and finally received a concrete job offer in mid-November. I waited until December 15th to inform my boss that I was quitting the firm and told him I would be using my 2 remaining weeks of vacation/sick leave so that my resignation was effective immediately. He was surprised that I didn't wait until April to leave, but I laughed, telling him I knew he was going to do me over on my bonus anyway, so the money wasn't worth waiting around for. He then asked me to stay through the end of January in order to give him enough time to hire and train an assistant or a replacement to handle my clients. I refused, noting that Jeremy had quit 20 months before, so he had plenty of time to prepare for this eventuality. As I was packing up my office and informing coworkers about my departure, I got a knock on my office door from the HR rep as he wanted to conduct an exit interview. He closed the door and I aired out all of my dirty laundry. I told HR the firm had lost me when my boss had done me out of my bonus, repeating the story that there wasn't any money in the budget. The HR counterpart shook his head and laughed at my boss's stupidity, noting that since Jeremy had been an employee at the beginning of the year I'd arrived, his salary and bonus was actually in the budget for the whole year. As such, my boss could have allocated that amount that he would have paid Jeremy to my bonus, which probably would have kept me reasonably happy. Instead, he decided to do me over. I moved back to California that week and started the new job the first week of January. 3 months into my new job, I got a call from a coworker at my previous firm. He called to tell me that after I left, HR from the head office in New York came down early in the new year to interview my former coworkers. Apparently, my sudden departure had raised some eyebrows in New York as they viewed me as a rising star, and questions were asked as to why I left so abruptly. Apparently, other employees in my office had also been done over in various ways. Lots of client development meal expenses were rejected for being too expensive by the guy who was routinely billing his meals with his friends to the firm. So after listening to all of the complaints, New York management decided to make a change years before he was due to be rotated back to Europe. Since he was related to a guy on the board, they couldn't fire him, so they reassigned my old boss to some backwater farm town. I couldn't pronounce the town, but was told it was some kind of place that doesn't provide perks like allowances for housing, accounts for expensive steak restaurants, or a new Mercedes. I started my own company 5 years back, and it's worked out pretty well. Even though I was done over 25 years ago, I always think about that experience fondly, as I probably would have worked for a company like that for my entire life had I not been shown how companies and bosses will generally do you over if given half a chance. It was eye-opening and put me on a path to eventually start my own firm, so for that I'm forever grateful. I always think about that situation around New Year's to remind myself of how far I've come and how not to treat my employees. Hopefully some of you can benefit from my experience without all of the drama that I went through. Happy New Year! I gave my Karen mother-in-law a fake copy of my house key and she went berserk about it. I want to preface this by saying that I, female 34, married my husband, male 37, a year ago. His mom is snoopy and very annoying. She can't help it, that's just how she is, as my dear in-laws say. My husband and I purchased a new house recently. My mother-in-law kept pushing to get an emergency key. She promised that she would only use it in an emergency, but given the fact that she had an emergency key to our old apartment and walked in on us twice, but my husband didn't think it was a big deal. I just couldn't trust her, so I just sent her a fake key after she kept pushing, and she had a smug look on her face after I hand-delivered it to her. Days went by, and on Christmas dinner, mother-in-law angrily called me out on the fact I gave her a fake copy of my house key. She shamed me for doing this in front of everyone, but in my defensive, I asked her how she found out, and she said a few days ago when she came over at 4 while my husband and I were out. I reminded her, "Didn't you promise you would only use it if there was an emergency? So you tried to get in when there was no emergency, and you broke the promise you made to us." She looked red in the face, and the other family started staring, and some even laughed at her for the face she made. She suddenly got up from her seat and rushed into the kitchen, where she had a huge meltdown, so loud that the next-door neighbors must have heard. Literally, I've never heard a 60-plus-year-old woman throw a tantrum like that. Needless to say, dinner went awkward, and my husband and his sister were giving me looks. My husband went off on me in the car and said I lied and manipulated and humiliated and exposed his mom, and said he wouldn't have let me get away with it if he had known. We had an argument, and he's demanding I apologize to his mom for my childish behavior and for ruining Christmas dinner for the whole family. Am I the jerk? ETA. So this went off unexpectedly, and I thought I'd show my husband some pretty helpful comments I found here a few minutes ago, but he got mad at me when he saw it and said I was nuts to talk about his family online. He demanded my phone so he could delete it, but I refused and I went upstairs and into the bedroom. I never have seen him so agitated, and I didn't think he'd react like that honestly. But thank you guys for your support. It really means so much. I'll update if I can. Thanks again. Not the jerk. I'd rethink my marriage if my husband put his mother over me. Yeah, this needs to be dealt with before they have kids, because it will only get more and more out of hand, and you don't want her having meltdowns in front of your kids. Can you imagine mother-in-law taking the kids without permission? Having a tantrum in front of everyone, including the kids, when she's called out? Yuck. Not the jerk. But your husband seems to have no problem with you being humiliated and shamed in front of everyone. He seems to have no regards to your need of privacy and dignity. Am I the jerk for kicking out boyfriend because of his dog? I know the title is going to get people riled up, but hear me out on this. I, 31 female, have been dating dude, 29 month, for 8 months. It has been great. He has a dog that is 8 that he has had since she was a puppy. I have nothing against dogs, I'm just not a fan of owning them simply because 1. I live in an apartment and I feel they need a yard. And 2, I don't want to do all the cleanup that's involved with them. He takes his dog most places with him, which is fine. She's very well behaved and has never caused any problems. In my place, I have an elderly cat as well as a guinea pig and gerbils, 3 fish tanks, and a partridge in a pear tree. I usually go over to his place to hang out for the sake of his dog. The other day, he offered to come over to my place to hang out and help me install a new wall mount. I said it was fine. Without asking if it was okay first or even bringing it up to me, he had brought his dog with him. My apartment doesn't allow dogs, even as guests, so I had a bit of anxiety about it. His dog was doing fine when suddenly she started barking like crazy, which seemed out of character for her. Dude then said, "Oh, I forgot. You should put your animals away in a locked room." I asked why, and he laughed and said with a smile, "My dog ate my ex's rabbits. She got into the cage and everything. They aren't safe until they're locked in a room." I was upset. He knew I had small animals. This wasn't a surprise thrown at him, and he knew about this issue, and he brought his dog over without permission or warning. I told him he needed to leave now and take the dog with him. He isn't invited over anymore. He got upset at me and called me a dog hater, said that is just how dogs are, and I should be more accepting of her. I didn't respond, just continued to push him out of the door. Am I the jerk here? ETA, my friends are chipping in, telling me that this is just my anti-dog mentality coming out, and that I should be more open to doggos. It's really frustrating. I don't understand how some people can be so love blind to a dog. ETA 2. Wow, this blew up. I'm on break at work right now, but to quickly answer a question many have raised about what if when the time came up for us to move in together, moving in with a partner is not an end-game goal for me with relationships. In all of my relationships, even serious and long-term, I have preferred to live separately, so the pets having to live together would never be an issue. Am I the jerk for telling my sister no when she asked to have my house despite knowing how many kids she has? For some context, I, 29 female, have an older sister who's 34. About 5 years ago, our mom passed and her money was split between us, but the house was going to go to whoever had a kid first. I was 24 at the time of my mom's passing and clearly didn't plan to have kids anytime soon. So when my sister announced her pregnancy 1 year after mom's passing, I wasn't upset. I wasn't even sure I wanted the house in the first place since it wasn't my style. Eventually, I met my husband, 30 male, and we got our own house. My husband makes a lot of money, and the house he bought is almost 3 times the size of the house my mom had left behind. As of today, my sister has 4 kids and is currently pregnant with her 5th kid. I, on the other hand, just got pregnant with my first. My sister and her husband came over for dinner the other day. She brought up the fact that I was pregnant with my first kid and how she had already had 4 and was about to have her 5th. I questioned her because I wasn't sure where this was going, and then she said the following. "I mean, you and Alexander, my husband, only want 2 kids. Why don't we switch houses? I could have this one and you could take mom's house. I would appreciate it. It would really help with space, and you would make me and your niece and nephews so happy." Bruh. I laughed out loud. The house mom had left behind was big, and it was more than enough space for a 5th kid. I know my sister wants my house because it's more modern looking than mom's. I replied by asking her if she was ill and if she felt okay. I was joking. I will admit it wasn't the best thing to say, but it was the first thing my brain could process to say. With that, she started screaming. She called me selfish and asked if I had no compassion for her. She went on and on about how I know her and her husband are struggling with money and that the old house just wasn't doing it for her. I yelled back and told her to get out of my house. With that, her and her family left. Her husband was glaring at me the whole time, and my husband couldn't do anything but laugh because he found the situation ridiculous. Since then, I've received texts from distant family members saying things such as, "Your sister never asks you for anything, just do her one favor," and "Your mother didn't pass for you to treat your sister like an animal." All I did was tell her no, and everyone's acting like I'm evil. Their words have really made me rethink if I did the right thing. So tell me, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. She got a free house and she's still complaining? If she feels that there isn't enough space, then she should stop having kids. Seriously, if it's been 5 years since OP's mom passed and sister announced her first pregnancy in the following year, then she's been pregnant every single year for the past 4 years. That's crazy. In a way, I feel bad for her. The toll that must take on her physical and mental health must be immense, and hopefully this behavior is just her crashing. But I kind of don't think that's the situation here, and either way, she is the one choosing to add more to her plate. Birth control is an option. The mother's will taught OP's sister to associate deserving things with having babies. She's literally trained to think she's earning free houses by having more babies and that she deserves more house than her sister because she's having more babies faster. Well, what do you think? Should OP give her house to her sister or not? Please let us know. Some of these stories literally make me lose my mind. I have nothing else to say. My fiance expects me to be his free babysitter. I'm 28, female, and my fiance is 29, male. He has full custody of his 2 daughters and 1 son from his previous relationship. I've been with him for 5 years. His oldest is 10. When the world crashed and burned, the kids were put into remote learning. Because I was the one with a smaller income, I ended up having to stay home with the kids while he continued working. This year, the school decided to stay remote, so I am still home. I worked remotely for a little while, but soon was terminated due to the noise the kids made and not having a space away from the chaos. We've not had a break in over 2 years. No one offers to help with the kids. We never have date nights, nothing. The kids are always here. Their mother is a deadbeat. She took them for 4 hours the other day, despite having agreed to have them for 3 nights. The kids now hate her. We do too. Anyways, we got invited out tonight and I'm itching to get out of the house. Our buddy is having a small get-together at his place, 5 people including us. We found out a week ago. Since this point, I have asked my fiance to find a sitter multiple times. I have searched as well. I've asked my mom and my gram, both of which cannot. So I told him to ask his mother. He has given every single excuse not to. I need to get out of the house. After all, I'm the one who is constantly home with the kids and I need a break. I need adult time, period. So I told him either he finds a sitter or he can stay home with the kids while I go out. In which case, he says that I'm taking things too far and that I'm acting like it's the end of the world. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You need to rethink this whole relationship. You are a convenience to him, literally an unpaid worker. You should never ever stop working to support someone else's kids when there's no discussion of the relationship becoming permanent. Edit. I do see where OP said fiance now, my mistake. However, what I'm trying to convey is that OP is getting boxed into a situation where she will be 100% dependent on her fiance and caring for kids that can be taken away at a moment's notice until she is legally tied to them. I'm not saying her fiance isn't a great guy, but he could end this relationship tomorrow or tonight, and OP would be left with no job, likely no savings, a gap in her job history, and a broken heart when kids she's grown to love are suddenly not there anymore. He still gets adult time through work, and I'm pretty sure he gets other extra time like going out for some drinks with colleagues because he needs to go to build team morale or any other excuse like this. What does a regular afternoon look like after he gets home from work? How many times has he taken the kids for the entire day to give OP a day to just be herself and not be such a caretaker nor do chores? I'm guessing not even once every 2 months, probably so much less. OP has been an unpaid nanny/teacher for over 2 years, lost her job due to taking care of his kids, and is now taking things too far by asking for the smallest of favors. I would run so far and so fast. Yes, I would leave him so quickly. He's literally using every excuse in the book to prevent OP from going out and getting some adult time. She's working tirelessly as a stay-at-home parent to support someone else's kids with no breaks over 2 years. She literally has to stop her job to stay at home looking after his kids, and he can't babysit, or more correctly, parent, for 1 night? This is not okay. OP, he's being less of a parent to his own kids than you. And no date nights in 2 years? What are you doing in this relationship? He wants you as a maid, not a partner. OP isn't acting like the end of the world. He's lost the right to say that after he refused to parent his own kids. 2 years without snapping requires incredible resilience. But unless you guys can work this imbalance out, it's time to go. Don't want to give me my bacon? That's fine. This happened to me about a year ago during the peak of lockdown, and I thought I would share it. There were several restaurants that were struggling last year, some near the peak of lockdown. Several shut down completely, and others fired all of their staff just to try to stay afloat. Around this time, my wife and I made it into a habit to order takeout from our favorite establishments. We always tipped the standard 20+%, despite these always being takeout orders. One restaurant in particular forgot to include the bacon that was supposed to come with our order. The order was around $20, with a tip of around $5, so around $25 total. When you picked your order up from this restaurant, you had to park and come inside. There was no drive-through or curbside pickup. On this particular day, I picked up our order as usual and drove home, about a 5-minute drive. We immediately discovered that the bacon we had ordered was missing, so I called the restaurant. I expected to call and simply have them refund the $3 cost of the bacon. Simple enough, right? Wrong. This restaurant only had one person working the front, so when you called, you knew exactly who you were speaking with. When I called and stated that they must have forgotten to include the bacon, before I had a chance to ask for any type of resolution, refund, replacement, etc., this person informed me that there was a large sign in the restaurant instructing customers to check their orders for accuracy before leaving the store. As it turns out, the sign they mentioned was there. The instructions for checking your order was one of about 5 notes hastily written on a piece of printer paper taped to a wall. It was out of the way, not obvious, and sloppily handwritten. However, I had failed to read this note, and I had failed to check my order for accuracy before leaving the store. I admitted this and asked them to either refund the $3 or I could pick up the missing bacon. Definitely not a preferred option, but whatever. The restaurant refused these requests, told me the missing bacon was my fault, and went as far as to question whether the bacon had actually been forgotten, stating that they remembered packing my order. This is where the malicious compliance comes in. They had basically accused me of lying about $3 worth of bacon that was missing from an order. This conversation had escalated quickly in the span of about 30 seconds, and I was upset. I informed this person that they had failed to provide what I had ordered and that I would be forced to seek compensation, all $3 worth. I asked how they preferred I go about seeking this compensation, hoping that they would succumb and just give me a $3 refund. However, to no one's surprise but my own, the restaurant told me to go ahead and file a chargeback because they had video proof and that I would lose that chargeback case. So I did exactly that. I called up my credit card company and filed a chargeback. This chargeback was for $3 on a $25 charge, only $3, not the full charge. The agent with my credit card company offered to simply refund the $3 several times, but I kept insisting that it was the principle of it at this point, so I proceeded with the chargeback. There is paperwork that you have to fill out if a merchant contests a chargeback. About 3 months after initiating the chargeback, I get paperwork in the mail that instructs me to provide all of the proof I have. I provided no proof other than a recollection of what the merchant had stated, including them stating that they had video evidence of the bacon going into my order. I felt like I had already won at this point. It was costing them time and energy, and I was happy to fight the fight, all for the sake of $3. A couple of months after I submitted this follow-up paperwork, I get a letter from the credit card company stating that they had decided in my favor and that the merchant was forced to credit me the $3, a big win for humanity. What many people don't know is that a chargeback costs the merchant, especially small merchants, and this cost can easily be upwards of $100, despite the chargeback being for only $3. Additionally, if a merchant has enough chargebacks, a card processor may increase the merchant's rates or discontinue a contract entirely. Basically, any chargeback a small merchant has on their record is bad. So in all, the restaurant instructed me to file a chargeback. I wasted a ton of their time, ended up costing them in the neighborhood of $100 for the chargeback fee, and won the $3 that they should have just credited me in the first place. Edited to clarify a few things. 1. The person in question was not a teenager. Not sure where everyone got that from. They were middle-aged, late 40s, and appeared to be the manager. 2. No, I will not be naming the restaurant. They're still in business. I still go there, and I have not seen this person or manager since this incident. I have no idea whether they quit or were fired or are now a Reddit troll, but I know they no longer work there. What a strange hill for them to die on. The phone call alone probably made them lose money from how much time they spent on it. It was likely the employee themselves being crappy and didn't want to make things right. Any normal food worker would have just gone, "Oh, sorry, here's a side of bacon." The manager probably didn't even know about it unless they're the one on the phone. Am I the jerk for leaving my roommate's dog at the shelter? I, 26 female, used to room with a girl who we'll call Jade. Jade decided to get a dog when we were living together. The dog was fine. I didn't really pay much attention to it. Jade got sick and had to go back to her parents' house. She said it would only be for a couple weeks, so I agreed to watch her dog. That was in July. It had been a month, so longer than she told me to expect, so I sent her a message asking when she wanted her dog back. She didn't answer, and when I tried to contact her again a few weeks later, she had me blocked. I tried multiple ways of messaging her, but got no response. The apartment was in my name only at that point. I reached out to her parents as well, but also got no answer. I messaged Jade again and said that I was moving out of the apartment and wouldn't bring her dog, so if she wanted him back, she would need to pick him up within a reasonable time. That was in October. I got no response, so I left him at the shelter. He got adopted fairly quickly because he was a more expensive breed and had no behavioral issues, only a few medical problems. A few days ago, Jade messaged me. She asked if I wanted to room again. I told her I had my own house now, so that would be a no. She asked when she could come get her dog, and I told her I had given him up after not getting a response for months. She blew up at me. She said I couldn't leave her dog at a shelter and that I was being inconsiderate, and she had to leave for medical reasons and didn't want to but couldn't bring her dog. I told her that if she had answered, I would have kept the dog, but I didn't want to keep having to pay for a dog that wasn't mine, and I had no way of talking to the owner. She called me a hypocrite because I got a dog after giving hers up. Jade is still very upset with me and was complaining about me on social media. I didn't think I was a jerk at the time because I did warn her and try to reach out to her in multiple ways, but now I feel bad and think I may be wrong here. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. She blocked you. Can't complain. Yup. Not to mention, OP did more than enough by trying to contact the dog's owner in multiple ways and even tried to contact the parents. Jade had ample warning/opportunity to come get her dog or have someone else come pick up the dog due to her illness. Sounds like OP just wanted some sort of communication that was never given. Not the jerk. Even if OP got their own dog after giving the other dog away. You can't abandon your dog for months and expect to have it when you're ready. Even if she had medical issues, she should have been checking in on her dog, giving money for food, etc. That's what you do when you care about your animals. Just ghosting someone because you don't want to deal with it means you forfeit your rights. Am I the jerk for only paying for myself when my fiance and future in-laws invited me to a New Year's Eve dinner at a scale restaurant? I, female 32, just got engaged to my fiance, male 37, Sam. We do not live together because we're waiting till marriage, given he and his family are highly conservative Christians, but they're really nice and lovable people. I had plans to spend New Year's Eve with Sam, but he said he was out for New Year's Eve dinner celebrations with his parents, then called me again, inviting me to join them, and I happily did. His parents were there. They welcomed me and ordered many dishes and desserts and drinks. We celebrated and had a great time, that is, until it was time to pay. I pulled my wallet out of my bag, letting them know that we'll split the check between us. Sam mumbled, "No, you don't have to. We invited you." But I insisted. He and his parents then stared at me. I asked what was wrong, and both mother-in-law and father-in-law said they didn't have money on them. I was shocked. I turned to Sam, and he said he too forgot his wallet at home and didn't bring enough money to cover even one round of drinks. His dad then laughed nervously. "All right, so guess we should let the doctor pay." I was taken aback. I said I'm sorry, but no, this is just so much money to spend on one dinner by myself, and I didn't think I was expected to pay the entire bill. Sam said I should pay and he'd pay me back later, but I said no, since I know he will have to get a job to pay that much money. Wait, so you're a 32-year-old doctor and you're about to marry a 37-year-old guy who doesn't even have a job? Bruh. I said I'm sorry, but this isn't the first time I've been put in this situation by him and his family where I'm expected to rescue them after they somehow forgot their wallets and expect me to pay hundreds for their extravagant dinner. I told them I'll only pay for what I had and that's it. He and his parents were shocked. They started arguing about how I have the potential to pay right then and there, but I was acting as if they were strangers and not family. But that doesn't mean I'm obligated to pay. How could someone go out to a fancy restaurant, order so many dishes, desserts, and drinks without bringing money? Sam begged that I just do it and call it a night, but I refused. The argument got heated, then I got up and walked out. Sam called later at 2 a.m., basically yelling that I ruined New Year's Eve celebration and made his parents suffer because I refused to pay the entire bill, and instead acted selfishly and paid only for myself after they were gracious enough to invite me. I told him how unfair it was for me to pay. Even if I had a good salary, doesn't mean I want to spend it all on fancy dinner. He didn't reply. He just said he'll pray that his parents let this go and don't resent me after I basically damaged the relationship with them. I felt awful thinking I should have covered the bill instead of leaving. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. They all conveniently left their wallets at home. It doesn't seem likely they forgot them at all, and they invited you with the expectation that you'll pay. You should rethink marrying this guy. He expected you to pay for an expensive meal without your knowledge, and you've been put in this situation before by him. It seems he's using you for money, and that's extended to his family. They ruin their own New Year's Eve by trying to force someone else to pay for a meal they cannot afford. OP. Absolutely. And father-in-law's comment about letting the doctor pay was the biggest tell for me, though this wasn't the first time I was put in this situation. Why doesn't your partner have a job? Not the jerk. Why are you marrying this guy? You are being taken advantage of. 100% don't marry this guy. He doesn't have a job. It doesn't seem like a stay-at-home parent arrangement is in place, so he's essentially leeching off OP. Intentionally, it seems. They weren't gracious enough to invite you. If you invite someone out to dinner, you pay. The invite is nothing more than a calculated attempt to get a free meal out of OP. The fact that fiance didn't stand up for OP and even supported their comments raises a lot of flags. This is not the first time they've tried to take advantage of OP financially. It seems like Sam is also in on it with his parents, because no one leaves their wallets home that conveniently. OP, you need to seriously rethink the marriage and this relationship in general. His parents are not nice and lovable to you. They're nice to your wallet. And your future husband, hopefully not for long, are the same. You're in it for the marriage, he's in it for the money. Neighbor wants free Wi-Fi. My mother lived in a retirement community, small houses very close together. The gentleman who lived next door passed and left the house to his son who moved in with his wife, both about age 35. Even though this was a violation of the rules, at least one member of the household has to be over 55. No one really cared since the guy said he was just staying there for a few weeks until his new house was ready. Almost a year later, he was still there. Meanwhile, mom got her first PC, and the only option for broadband was DSL from the local telephone company. I think the speed was 2 megabytes and cost about $25 a month. When the telco installed the modem and router combo, the tech enabled the Wi-Fi and never set up any security. One day mom called me because her internet speed was really slow. I stopped by and found another PC was connected to the Wi-Fi. After verifying that she had no idea what this other PC was and had certainly not given anyone permission to use her connection, I disabled it. I also changed the router login credentials from the factory default. About 20 minutes later, her neighbor knocked on the door asking if everything was okay with her internet. Yep, all good. I said that if he was having problems with his service, he should call the telco. He said that he doesn't have his own service. Since he's only living there temporarily, it didn't make sense to pay for his own service when he could just borrow mom's Wi-Fi. But now he can't connect. Perhaps something was blocking the antenna. He wanted to come in and take a look. I politely explained that the antenna is fine. He can't connect to her Wi-Fi because I disabled it. He got very upset and demanded I enable it. I suggested he call the telco and get his own service. He said it would take several days for the telco to get set up, and what was he supposed to do until then? I suggested he use the free internet at the public library, but I was not going to enable her Wi-Fi. If he had been nice and said he would call the telco and get his own service, and maybe offered to split the cost, I would have enabled the Wi-Fi until his was set up. But since he was such a jerk, I just shut the door. Edit. I should have been more clear. This happened a few years ago. My mother didn't want to start a battle with her neighbor. The other residents complained that if this guy was allowed to live there, why couldn't their grandkids stay for the summer? The HOA got a court order to make him vacate the property. He tried to fight it, but lost. He was told he could retain ownership and rent it out, leave it empty, and still pay the monthly maintenance fee, or sell it. He sold it and moved. Am I the jerk for refusing to give my sister-in-law money she claims I owe her? My brother and sister-in-law got married 3 years ago in a ceremony that was attended only by parents on both sides. Their intent was to do that and have a large reception later on for the rest of the family. 6 months after the wedding, they sent us out to save the dates, and my sister-in-law called and asked if I would want to be a bridesmaid. Sister-in-law put me in a group chat with the rest of the wedding party and sent links for the dress, shoes, makeup, and accessories. The cost of this alone was $1,200 and did not include any tailoring that needed to be done to the dress. We were also going to need to pay $70 to get our nails done with a nail polish, as well as an additional $150 for professional hair and makeup the day of the wedding. Then we had to pay for my son's tuxedo and shoes, which was $160. The maid of honor, which is her sister, added me to a different group chat to discuss the bachelorette and bridal shower. The cost for each of these per bridesmaid was going to be $750 a person. There were 7 of us. Unfortunately, during this time, our boiler/furnace died, and the upstairs bathtub cracked and leaked through the ceiling in the basement, and we had to replace a chimney flute to the tune of $16,000. I texted the maid of honor and let her know what happened and told her that I would not be able to give her the money for this, as we had just spent so much repairing the house. She immediately went to my brother and told him that I was refusing to pay her. I explained what happened to my brother, and he told me not to worry about it, he would talk to her. I thought everything was okay. The reception party and little ceremony were nice. I talked to my brother the week after this, and right off the bat, he asked about the money I owed to her. I told him that I did not have that kind of money right now, and reminded him that he said not to worry about it. He then said that we need to pay our share of the parties, which I did not even go to, by the way. And I again said that I did not have that much money to give out right now. My sister-in-law then said that I could make payments, and I told her that wasn't happening. Now, every family event that we attend, my sister-in-law makes snide comments and remarks about us being deadbeats and refusing to pay our debts, and while I now have the money and could give it to her, I'm refusing to give it to her. Am I the jerk for not giving her the money? Edit. Since I guess I was unclear, I paid for the dress, shoes, makeup, nail polish, jewelry, hair accessories, and hair and makeup, as well as the manicure and pedicure as soon as I agreed to be bridesmaid. I did not find out about the extra $750 for the bachelorette and bridal shower until after I paid for everything else and after my house fell apart. You need to buy her the full DVD set of Bridezillas as a gift for New Year's and give it to her in front of the entire family. Problem solved, not the jerk. Not the jerk. If you gave them enough warning and didn't even attend the party, why are they expecting you to pay for it? What was at this party that even cost that much on top of everything else? 7 times 750 equals $5,250. Not the jerk. You didn't go to the parties and you didn't agree to pay it, so you don't owe them anything. Next time she calls you a deadbeat, call her a mooch for trying to get people to pay for parties they didn't attend. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or sister-in-law? Please let us know. Extravagant weddings, rehearsals, recitals, bridal showers, parties, bachelorette stuff. Why do people insist on spending money that they don't even have? Karen, welcome to America. Am I the jerk for kicking out my girlfriend on New Year's Eve? We can all agree that 2020 was a bad year, particularly for my 29 male family. We lost our dad beginning of the year after he had a heart attack, and my little brother, 12, had no one to take care of him. Our mom passed when he was 3, so our dad was all we had left. I fought for custody and was appointed his legal guardian. Honestly, it hasn't been easy. We're still adjusting to these life changes, and my brother is taking it the hardest. For months, he was just not himself. Bad attitude, lashing out. I got him in therapy because I knew he was just hurting, plus stress of lockdown. His behavior has improved so much since then, even if sometimes there's days where he's withdrawn. Days before Christmas, he was feeling sad since it was our first holiday without Dad. That day, he asked to be left alone. We had a talk to discuss his feelings, and I gave him the space after that. My girlfriend was over that day, and I went out to buy groceries. When I got back, my brother was out of his room and helping out. I didn't think anything of it at the time. Yesterday, my brother and I were out having some guy time before going back home to get ready for New Year's Eve. My brother opened up about how grateful he is for everything, and he hopes that I don't change my mind about taking care of him. I asked why he'd think that, and he told me what happened. That day when I was out, my girlfriend went to his room to tell him he needs to change his attitude and stop moping, her exact words, because he should be grateful I'm taking care of him at all, and that we can still hand him over to the state if we wanted to. I was furious about this and had to reassure him that was never going to happen because he really was worried about it. We went home, I confronted my girlfriend, and she didn't deny it. She told me it's true, and there was nothing wrong with telling him to stop acting like that when he should be grateful I gave up my life to take care of him. And the thing about giving him up isn't that big of a deal to her because it's not like I'll actually do it. I said she still scared him with that threat and told her to leave my apartment because honestly, I was far too mad and because I didn't want her to be near him right now. She started crying. There was more fighting, but she left in the end. It was just me and my brother for New Year's. Since last night, I've been bombarded with calls from all our friends for kicking her out, knowing she has no family and nobody else to spend the holiday with. Everyone has sided with her, and even my best friend says I may have overreacted by making her leave when she probably thought she was helping. They've heard my side of the story, but still think I was the jerk for making her cry and spending the new year alone. I'm having trouble seeing how I could be, so here I am looking for internet strangers to weigh in on this. Update. Okay, wow, this has gotten a ton of feedback. Thanks everyone for your kind and encouraging words. I might not have replied to a lot of the comments that made me smile, but just know that I read and appreciate them. I know I only posted this a few hours ago, but I've had a day to clear my head and really think about this. I talked to my brother because I wanted to know if she said anything else to him. Thankfully she hasn't, and we had another serious chat to remind him everything she told him is completely false. I would never in a million years give him up, and that shouldn't have been put in his head. Another thing I told him was that I'm grateful he's here with me. Without him, I wouldn't have made it through the year, and I thanked him for giving me the strength to keep going. Someone who DM'd me suggested reassuring him that he's not somehow ruining my life in case he feels any guilt for what she told him. Thank you for that suggestion. Now, I know you are all waiting on this news. Yes, I did break up with her. Thinking about what a lot of you said, talking to my brother about how this made him feel, and my own thoughts about how badly she acted, I decided that's not someone I want to be around me or him. I can't risk her doing something like this again and ruining any progress he makes in therapy. I know many of you think I should have done it on the spot, but I wanted to make this decision with a clear head and not when my emotions were extremely high. She came by my place earlier and we talked outside. Her reaction was as bad as you'd expect, and she still believed she did nothing wrong, even after I explained it all to her. There was just no making her understand, and I told her it was over. I gave her a couple of her things that were lying around my apartment, and she left. My phone started going off like an hour later, so I had to put it on Do Not Disturb. That's all the drama I could handle for one night. I'll deal with my friends some other time. Honestly, I'm exhausted, mentally and emotionally drained right now. I think this weekend we'll do something to get our minds off this. I definitely need it after everything, and I know my brother does too. It's been a hard year already without all this extra drama. Anyways, sorry for the long update, you guys, but I didn't want to leave anyone hanging. I'm sure more comments will keep coming. I probably won't be sleeping much tonight, so I'll keep my mind busy by reading and replying to more of you. Thanks again for the support. What a crappy way to start the new year, but here's hoping for better things. My sister is demanding I adopt her baby. 7 years ago, I, 35 female, adopted my niece who's 9 from my sister, 26. My parents have health issues and could not take her in, so I took on the responsibility. I love my niece, and I will never ever blame her for my sister's mistakes, but it had unfortunately uprooted my life. It caused a significant sidetrack in my career, and I've had to turn down better job offers because they wouldn't allow me to stay close enough to home. My parents love my niece, but cannot take on the responsibility of caring for her, so I don't want to separate them. I even had a boyfriend before I took in my niece, but he also did not want to have kids, and we made the decision to part when I took her in. We've never hid from my niece who her biological mother is, and even though the first few years of her life were hard, 3 years ago, my sister started being in our lives again. She told me that she wishes for me to keep raising my niece because I have the better job and can afford it. My sister only has her GED and can hardly afford to keep herself afloat. She usually lives with her temporary boyfriends, so she doesn't have to worry about paying for her own place. My sister acts like an aunt to her daughter, not like a mother, and my niece still loves her mother greatly. This past holiday, we were at my parents' to open presents, and my sister gave my niece a present to open. It was a shirt that said, "I'm going to be a big sister" on it. We weren't sure what this meant, but my sister informed us that she was pregnant and that she would not be able to keep it, and she was once again expecting me to take in the baby. My niece was so excited at the news, and my parents were happy to hear they were getting another grandchild, but I was just floored. I burst into tears immediately and just walked out. My sister came in to talk to me, and I told her that I wouldn't be able to take in the baby. I don't want a new baby. I love my niece, but raising her is enough responsibility already. My sister told me I would be wrong not to take in my niece's brother. She didn't mean to get pregnant, and she doesn't even know who the father is. My parents couldn't take on a baby either, so it's up to me. My sister told me I should feel blessed, but I don't. When I told my parents and niece, they were all very upset, my niece especially. I don't know what to do, but I can't take in another baby. I know it is my niece's sibling and my sister's kid, but it would completely ruin my life. my parents and sister are trying to get me to change my mind about this. Am I the jerk? She threw this on you in front of everyone, including her/your daughter? No, manipulation in its purest form. She's 26 now, not 17. She has a GED. That should count for something. At this point, if she can't get her life together to keep the baby, or simply doesn't want it, that's fine. She doesn't have to keep it, but it's not on you to keep it. She can put it up for adoption. There are other families looking to adopt. Not the jerk. You are not her child-raising service. Absolutely. Giving her biological daughter a "you're going to be a big sister" t-shirt as a way of attempting to force her sister to say yes to adopting a second kid is so incredibly manipulative that I would consider cutting off her contact to see OP's daughter, at least until she makes massive amends and promises to never ever pull crap like that again. I was thinking the same thing, but that might just confuse the daughter more. Does the sister have any medical conditions? She sounds kind of spur of the moment, doesn't think things through, wondering if she's just a free spirit or there's something underlying she needs help with. It sounds to me like she knows exactly what she's doing. Buying the shirt, giving it to OP's daughter in front of everyone? Nah, that's manipulative behavior she puts some thought into. She knew everyone would gang up on OP, that OP would have to deal with an upset kid, and she would be absolved of any wrongdoing. Honestly, it's heartbreaking because I have a strong feeling that OP's relationship with their niece will not be unaffected by this. OP is going to come out of this looking like the bad guy, even though she is definitely not the jerk. Not the jerk. Your sister needs to look into adoption. You need to get some counseling for you and your niece. Dealing with her mother in and out of her life has to be confusing. It's especially hard because your sister is using your niece's excitement to manipulate you and your parents. You don't want to upset the kid you have raised, but you shouldn't let your family force you to take in another baby. You and your niece will benefit greatly from some professional counseling and to navigate this crap storm. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you adopt the new baby or not? Please let us know. That Karen needs to stop having babies she can't take care of. Am I the jerk for insisting my boyfriend eat respectfully at a nice restaurant? So my boyfriend, L, who's 20 male, and I, 20 female, have been dating for 7 months. We usually eat takeout if we want to get something to eat. However, I was recently promoted, so we went to eat at a very nice Italian restaurant to celebrate, like one with an enforced dress code. My boyfriend is not the nicest of eaters, which can be kind of gross, but I deal with it. However, I didn't realize he had no table manners. At the restaurant, after we were served our first appetizer, a beautifully plated bruschetta dish, Elle looked at me and jokingly asked me if I would be upset if he enjoyed his meal the same way he would at home. I told him that we were at a nice restaurant and there were other customers around. He didn't say anything, but instead started digging into the bruschetta with his hands, ignoring the serving fork, getting sauce all over his fingers. I let this go. However, when the pasta came out, he smirked at me and ate it like he hadn't eaten in a week. He dropped his fork and started picking up pieces of chicken and noodles with his fingers, getting sauce everywhere. The tablecloth, his hands, his clothes, his face. He didn't miss the opportunity to loudly burp after he had finished destroying his side of the table. The table next to us was astonished. My waiter even asked him if he was okay. Other customers were staring. He also put his feet up on the chair next to us, blocking the aisle. I had no idea what to do. You could start by dumping this bozo. Where do you find these guys? I didn't want to make even more of a scene, so I just asked for the check, which I paid, and left really embarrassed. On the way home, I told him how embarrassed I was, and he just said that it was my fault for not letting him enjoy the meal as he pleased, and that since we were paying customers, the other guests had no business judging us. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Your boyfriend behaved like a toddler. The fact that he smirked before doing it suggests he knew exactly what he was doing and that he was trying to embarrass you. Not the jerk. This isn't like he used the wrong fork or made a bit of a mess failing with oysters or lobster. He was intentionally being disgusting because he wanted to make a statement. I'm too cool for a fancy restaurant. Agreed, not the jerk. Honestly, aren't you tired of dealing with your boyfriend's behavior? He's acting like a kid and you aren't his mom. Get yourself someone you don't have to worry about being in public or a restaurant with. It's just the basics of social politeness, and if he thinks he's above it, do yourself a huge favor and dump him. Not the jerk. This is the human equivalent of a pet looking you in the eye while it goes to the bathroom on your favorite cushion. It's not a lack of knowledge of how to behave on his part, it was a deliberate act of dominance. Take this as a warning sign. Your future successes and happiness will be treated the same way. Don't waste any more time on this jerk. Not the jerk. He ruined something you wanted to do. You're both 20. Does he clean himself properly? Or is he only a messy eater? I feel like he might be trying to shoot down your hopes for enjoying yourself and make you feel guilty for wanting the things you do and paying for it. It will only escalate from here if you don't nip this thing in the bud, the behavior, in my opinion. Although, also in my opinion, you're not his mom and it's not your job to teach him how to behave like his own mother should have many years ago. Message his mom for advice detailing everything like you did for us and see what she says, or find literally any other adult who would at least feel ashamed of themselves for making such a fool of themselves. It's not OP's job to nip it in the bud, as though somehow OP has the power to change who he is. That's a trap people, especially women, often fall into. They see a problem and think that if they're patient enough, the person with the problem can be changed. Instead, they should ask themselves, if this never changes, is it something I can live with? If OP's significant other has redeeming qualities that she values more than basic public good manners, and she can live with this disgusting display for the rest of her life, then fine. If OP decides that she can't tolerate it happening every time she has an opportunity to enjoy a fine dining experience, then she should dump him and move on. No discussions necessary. Well, what do you think? Should OP dump her boyfriend or not? Please let us know. I'd have whipped out the phone and started recording him. Ex-boyfriend loses it at fancy restaurant. How's that for a viral video? I walked out of my boyfriend's celebratory dinner. Now he's fuming. So my boyfriend, Kyle, 26 male, recently got a promotion to general manager at the restaurant he works at. I, 22 female, work full-time as a pediatric nurse, and my hours are kind of all over the place right now because of lockdown. Anyway, when he got home to tell me about his promotion, I was ecstatic. He's a hard worker and deserves it, 100%. But because it happened on a Tuesday, we decided we'll go for a celebratory dinner with our mutual friends Saturday night. I was scheduled to work Saturday, but I figured that as long as I was able to get home, shower, and change, all is well. I'll just sleep late on Sunday. So fast forward to Saturday. I unfortunately lost a patient who had been fighting for her life since birth. I've been her nurse every time I was working in that department, and her family are very important to me. I was absolutely devastated. When I got home, the last thing on my mind was dinner. I told Kyle about what happened, and he gave me a hug and said he's sorry to hear that. About 10 minutes later, he softly asked if I was going to go shower before we leave. I told him I really don't feel like going out, but he insisted that I go since I promised, and if he goes without me, his friends will ask a lot of questions. I didn't want to, but I agreed since I did promise. While I tried to keep a smile on my face, it was obvious I was upset. One of our friends asked if I was okay, and before I could just say I had a rough day at work, Kyle said, "She's been complaining about a patient she lost at work today," and scoffed. I was flabbergasted. He's never said anything like that before. I replied saying, "That patient was 3 months old." He shrugged and said that it's not my own kid and it shouldn't bother me this much. I was furious and embarrassed since this went down in front of our friends, so I just put down enough money for my meal and went home. I put his stuff in a box. He wasn't living with me, but would stay with me for 2 to 3 days a week. When he came back, he flipped out, and I just said I need space. That was 2 weeks ago. I've since changed the locks since he had a spare key. He says I'm overreacting and that I'm a jerk for ruining his big night, that I, selfishly, made it all about me. He accused me of thinking higher of myself because I'm a nurse and he works at a restaurant. Honestly, I don't know where that came from. And he also said that he figured since it was a celebratory dinner for him, he thought I was going to pay, and so walking out on him was very embarrassing because he didn't bring his wallet. One of our mutual friends, Amy, called me and said that while what Kyle said was messed up, that me leaving like that was unnecessary and it made the whole night awkward. I feel bad for ruining the night for everyone else, but I just couldn't let him get away with that. I'm very proud to be a nurse, and I don't want anyone, especially my partner, to talk poorly about it. So do you guys think I'm the jerk for walking out on dinner? Edit. Wow, thank you guys so much for all the kind comments. I've just now been able to read through most of the newer comments, and I've got tears in my eyes. I've lost a handful of patients since I became a nurse, and one whilst in nursing school. And while it definitely hurt me, I've never been this impacted by it. It still hurts to think about, and I'm sure it will for a long time. but hearing your guys' opinions and seeing your support honestly means the world to me. I wasn't sure if I was overreacting by packing his stuff out since this was the first big issue I've had with him, but seeing your comments helped me realize I wasn't. Seeing how all of you, who are internet strangers that have absolutely no reason to leave such sweet, caring comments, have way more compassion and empathy for me and the baby than the man who's supposed to be there for me says quite a lot. So thank you all so much. Edit 2. So I've been seeing some comments about the wallet thing. I honestly have no idea if he actually forgot it or if he just said that to get off the huge check, which my friend said was over $500. I wasn't aware he wasn't paying until after he was gone, so I didn't check the house to see if it was actually there. Edit 3. So it's 10:20 a.m. and I can happily say Kyle is completely out of my life. His friend picked up the last of his stuff about an hour ago. I called Kyle and, officially, even though it was kind of obvious, broke up with him and his number is blocked. Time for a mimosa. Thank you all for your super sweet messages. This blew up and I'm just overwhelmed by the support y'all have shown me. Not the jerk. Kyle said, she's been complaining about a patient she lost at work today and scoffed? Wow. He's talking like this is, we overcooked some calamari at work today and had to throw it out. And then to top it off, he assumed OP would pay for the dinner, even though that was never talked about before, so he didn't take his wallet. Wow is right. OP is already better off without him. I've been married for over 10 years. My husband pays most of the time when we go out, better reward system on his card, and I never leave home without my wallet. Relationship ending comment. She's been complaining about a patient she lost at work today. Who wants to make a life with someone with no empathy? Good for you for maintaining your personal ethics and boundaries. Not the jerk. Honestly, OP, I'm so impressed with you. I wish I had these kinds of convictions. You are not the jerk, and you are a role model to me, because I want to be able to stand up for myself like that rather than somehow take the blame for everything. You go, girl. Also, the fact that he hasn't even apologized and is still blaming you shows that the trash took itself out. Wow, you are not the jerk, but he sure is. Am I the jerk for uninviting my mom for my wedding because she got me a different gift than my siblings? I want to preface this with, it is about the money, and it is also not about the money. It's hurtful to be treated differently, and I know Reddit believes that no one owes anyone anything, but I feel like a mom does owe her kids fair treatment. I'm getting married in May to the love of my life. I don't think my mom is a huge fan, but at least she isn't one of those crazy moms that tries to break us up. There was one incident between them, but beyond that, the relationship has been mutually civil. I'm very lucky, and my parents paid for all of my schooling, including my master's. My mom seems to think that that is the norm, but I understand most parents can't do that, and I'm very fortunate. My fiance didn't have that opportunity, and she worked part-time and took out loans. She currently has $80,000 in student loans, but is working very hard to pay them back. My dad doesn't think I should marry her while she has them, but I made it very clear that isn't up for discussion. My dad is also paying for the wedding. When my sister got married, my dad paid for the wedding and my mom gave her a cash gift. I don't want to get into exact numbers, but it was extremely generous and probably more than the down payment of a house. I have another sister who is getting married in September, and I found out that my mom promised her the same amount of cash, but not me. I was upset because I believed at the time she was doing it because she dislikes my fiance. I confronted her and let her know if she was going to exclude my fiance or be hurtful just because she doesn't like her, there will be consequences. My mom said it wasn't about not liking her, it was about the student loans. My mom explained that both of my brother-in-laws have no debt, so the money was to start a future, but she knows if she gives me the money, it will go to the loan. True. And she feels she shouldn't be responsible for someone else's kid's college education. I tried to explain that paying down that debt ASAP is in the best interest of my future. My mom said she had thought a lot about it and asked her husband for advice. They both have kids from previous marriages and keep most money separate for estate planning purposes for their kids, so he doesn't have any vested interest. But he also hates me, so go figure that he said no. My mom said she feels bad, but I shouldn't punish her over a gift. I didn't say much at the time, but I thought long and hard and decided I don't want her at the wedding. She doesn't like my fiance. She doesn't care about my future as much as my sister's. She's playing favorites with her kids. I texted her my decision and she never replied. My sisters are now saying they aren't coming to the wedding, and my father is furious and demanding I re-invite her. My fiance actually teared up because she feels so supported. And this does hurt, but that has to be my priority. You're the jerk. You can invite or disinvite whoever you like for whatever arbitrary reason you chose, but do so knowing that in this case, you have no real argument against everyone thinking you're wrong. Yes, paying off the loans is an investment in your future too, but think of it this way. If your sister's marriages collapse, they get a refund on that investment, part of a house or equivalent value, even if it's in joint names, with which they can comfortably recover and start again. What do you get back from the loan repayment if you and your soon-to-be wife split up? It's still an investment, yes, but it's an unsecured investment, with risk of full loss rather than half. In the event of a split, your partner would get the full benefit of the gift, and you none, as opposed to half and half. Now, obviously, you're not going to think that you're going to split up because you're getting married, and doing so intending to split would be dumb. But from the point of view of an investment, you have to accept the inherent risk. And this risk also holds if something terrible happens. Your sister's husbands pass or become incapacitated, they have that security under them. What do you have if your wife passes or needs full-time care? And yes, again, that scenario is better without the debt than with it. But most aid would help with debt or current income, but won't help if you received a large gift and spent it. There's a lot of logic in what she's thinking, none of which is based on liking or disliking your fiancé or playing favorites. Maybe she even intended to hold the gift in a trust, in effect, until you cleared under you. Or the unthinkable scenarios came about, so you could benefit in the same way without the added risks. Assuming immediately that it's punitive is overreacting, and I'm sure your assumption and bias has colored how your fiancé reacted because you seem determined to make every innocuous decision into an attack on her. You're the jerk. You're an adult. Your parents are not obligated to give you anything. You're being treated differently because your circumstance is different. You just don't want to hear that because you want a handout you assumed you had coming. Neither is OP obligated to invite mom. She's literally downsizing a gift because she thinks OP and fiancé are too poor to appreciate it. Yes, you get it. Crazy all the people who are voting OP is the jerk in this thread. OP's parents are playing favorites because he marries someone without means. OP is right to be upset, and it is his wedding. He chooses who he wants to invite. OP is not the jerk. I feel as though many of these people voting OP is the jerk because they're jealous his parents are wealthy without realizing his parents are slighting him because he has a poor/in-debt fiancé. I'm between you're the jerk and everyone sucks here. Your mom doesn't have to give you money, and you shouldn't cut her out of a very important day over it. It makes you look petty and small, and honestly, when it comes down to it, you will probably regret this decision. Your mom shouldn't be picking and choosing between siblings. It's not fair, you're right. It's your choice to how you spend your money. Has your mom stated she would be giving you this money once the loans are paid off? That seems to be a fair compromise if you can all put your own egos aside. Everyone sucks here. Neither you nor your mother come out very well here. Your mother, giving large cash gifts to your sisters but not to you is certainly her right, but doing so is also a pretty clear case of playing favorites and a good way to build resentment between her offspring. She should not be surprised that you are hurt by the decision. She also shouldn't be surprised at a certain level of coldness from you in the wake of that decision. If your mother is playing favorites, you're certainly entitled to feel hurt. However, your behavior here comes across as entitled. Rather than let your mother make her decisions and react to them like an adult would, you instead demanded that she send you money. And now that you didn't get your way, you try to hurt her by disinviting her from your wedding. I know you feel like you're being righteous, but really, you're just being petulant. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his mom? Please let us know. Oh, this one's juicy. Please do leave a comment. I really can't wait to read them. Am I the jerk for not paying for my food when my boyfriend ate it? Hi. Yesterday, as you all know, was New Year. My boyfriend, Alan, male 26, a couple mutual friends, and I, female 26, went out for dinner to celebrate at a restaurant. Just for extra information, I'm a little on the heavier side. I'm on a diet currently, trying to lose the extra pounds, and Alan knows. At dinner, I ordered something called the crispy lemon chicken with creamy Parmesan spaghetti. It looked so amazing, and I decided to give myself a treat after eating healthy for a while. Alan gave me a weird look when I ordered it and said loudly to all my friends, "Whoa, no more diet?" Which was kind of embarrassing. Alan ordered a mushroom cauliflower rice with sweet peas. The food came in about 20 minutes time, and to my shock, Alan immediately started digging into my spaghetti. I said, "Hey, that's my food," and he laughed. "You can have mine, it looks nice." I argued that I didn't order that. I sadly hate cauliflower rice with a passion, but he said that I didn't need the extra calories. I would have grabbed back my food, but I didn't want to embarrass myself in front of everyone, so I angrily relented. Later, when we were footing the bill, we were all supposed to pay for our own meals. Alan asked me for $14 to cover my food, which was the cost for the spaghetti. I said that I wouldn't pay because I didn't get to eat it. He then asked for $10, the price of the cauliflower rice, but I still disagreed because I didn't order it. He got angry and said that I was acting like a gold digger. He said that I was a jerk. My friends think he shouldn't have been rude to me, but that I should have paid for the cauliflower rice since I ate it. It's petty, but he's been complaining about me to people. So, am I the jerk? Edit. For people who didn't see my comments, yes, I did dump him after dinner. He ignored the message and asked, "Please Venmo me the money." Not the jerk. You dumped Alan immediately after dinner, right? He embarrassed you, ate all your dinner, and left you to eat something you didn't even like that he ordered. OP. Of course I did. We've only been dating for 2.5 months, so I dropped him a message saying I couldn't do this anymore. He ignored my message, viewed but no response, but he seems to get the memo. Good for you, girl. If I were you, I'd order that amazing chicken pasta dish tomorrow, plate it up at home, and take a gorgeous selfie with it with a caption that says something about how unexpected it is that this dish caused you to instantly lose 180 pounds. Insane Karen loses it at my restaurant. I worked for close to 15 years at a small restaurant in my hometown. Mostly I did takeout and rang customers out. We are cash only, and most people in the area know that. This took place in 2013. So one day, a woman approaches the counter. She tells me, rather rudely, that she's paying and throws the receipt at me. I bring up her bill and tell her the amount, and she hands me a Visa. I tell her cash only, and she stands there with the Visa. I tell her again that we're cash only, and she says, "Oh no, honey, you can take cards. I come here every week and always pay with a card." I tell her again we are cash only, and she huffs and puffs, then digs through her wallet and hands me an American Express. I tell her again that we are cash only, and again, she tells me she's there all the time and always pays with cards. I tell her she has us mixed up and that there's an ATM in the lobby if she needs cash. The woman's face goes into this shocked expression, and she says to me, "An ATM? Are you insinuating that I need money and that I'm poor?" She storms out into the lobby to use the ATM after digging through her wallet to find cash. She stands at the ATM for a few minutes, then comes back in, telling me that she's not using a sketchy ATM because it's a bank she's never heard of, and it charges $3 for non-members. She then asks where a certain bank was in our area. It was a fairly large bank, but our town didn't have a branch, and I didn't know where there was a location around us. I tell her this, and she tells me I'm useless as an employee, and she'll recommend to my boss that he fire me. I tell her there's an ATM for Bank of America, not the bank she asked for, 5 minutes down the street. She thanks me and starts looking something up on her phone for a few minutes. She comes back up to the counter and tells me she's driving to the ATM. I tell her I need collateral from her, and she goes crazy, telling me I'm accusing her of being a thief. She then says that she'll leave her kid there as collateral. I tell her okay, thinking she's running to the ATM 5 minutes down the road. The girl takes a seat over in the corner at the front of the restaurant where we have a few chairs and a bench, and I go back to helping customers. I totally forgot about her until like an hour or so later when I realized she's still there. I'm a little worried because the Bank of America ATM is only 5 minutes away, but then I remember the mom asked about another bank. I quickly do a location search for it, and the nearest branch is 45 minutes away. So I'm assuming that's where the mom went to. I keep checking up on the girl, making sure she's okay and asking if she needs anything. I ask her if she knows her mom's phone number so I can call to check on her to see how much longer. She gives me her mom's number and I call. Mom picks up after a few rings, and I introduce myself and ask how long she'll be. She tells me she went to the ATM, and while she was out, she decided to run a few errands while her daughter wasn't with her, and that she appreciates us watching her daughter. I'm infuriated. I tell her we are not a babysitting service and I'm not watching her, as I have a job to do. She starts going ballistic, telling me that something could have happened with her daughter while she was in my care. I tell her that she has 10 minutes to get here or I'm calling the police. She showed up 9 minutes later, talking on the phone about how her babysitter bailed on her while she was in the middle of running errands, threw the money on the counter, grabbed her daughter, and stormed out. I don't call him by his name either. Last night, my daughter came home from her job. She works retail in a nearby shopping plaza, with the sad news that their neighboring store, which specializes in kitchenware, is having a going out of business sale. It was tragic news in our home, as my wife and daughter both share a passion for baking and cooking and shop there often, so much so that the owner, my wife, and daughter are on a first-name basis. Ever since my daughter was little, she was mommy's helper in the kitchen. It's been a running gag in our house the past few years that we give her a 5-pound bag of flour among her Christmas presents. Now, 17, she enjoys flying solo in the kitchen, and her pierogies are food not to be eaten but experienced. My wife is feeling under the weather, so she gave me a list of things to look at, plus a surprise item, more later. I agreed to meet my daughter at the store when she finished work. My daughter had gotten there a little early, and I was a little late leaving the house, so she had already been in the store by the time I arrived. That's when the fun begins. Our cast: we've got sweetheart daughter, we've got obnoxious lady, and we've got nice store owner. I arrive at the store and find daughter chatting with the owner, commiserating over the store closing. Owner was feeling sad and appreciated daughter's sympathy, so I decided to shop for a bit and let them finish their conversation. I had barely made it 20 feet before I was overwhelmed by some of the choices. Nearby stood a middle-aged woman who, even with a mask, you could tell wore a perpetual scowl that curdled milk in a 5-mile radius. So I turned towards daughter and said, "Hey sweetheart, I have a question." Old lady: "Sweetheart? That's not how you address a woman." At this point, daughter hears the kerfuffle and sprints over, knowing that the gene that allows one to suffer fools gladly is only present in my wife's DNA. Owner wasn't with her, apparently having just begun ringing someone up. Me. But she's old lady talking over me, raising her voice. "You jerk! She has a name!" Me. "Yes, I know. I was going to point out I gave her that name, after my grandmother, but she continued raising her voice. "You address her politely as," emphatically, "Miss, or use her name." Daughter, now arriving, putting her hands up. "Look, it's okay." Old lady turning to daughter. "No, it's not okay. You should not have to put up with," daughter raising her voice. "It's okay. I don't call him by his name either. I call him Dad." It's obvious that the embarrassment is now further exacerbating old lady's rage, and were I not suffering fools gladly challenged, I'd have just let things go. But as I mentioned, I lack that gene. Me. This is the part where a reasonable person apologizes. Karen just glares at me, determined not to give me the satisfaction before turning and walking away. Me. "Yeah, I knew our little exchange was one reasonable person short. Come on," with emphasis. "Sweetheart, let's finish," with emphasis. Mom's shopping list. We worked through the rest of the list, filling our basket and ferrying up the larger items to the counter. There are no shopping carts. Thankfully, Karen had gone by the time owner began ringing us up. Me to owner. "Oh, I forgot one thing." This is where the aforementioned surprise comes in. I hurriedly returned with the deluxe KitchenAid stand mixer that elicited a puzzled look from my daughter, as we already have one. Turning to my daughter, "This one's for you. Mom and I figured that someday when you have your own place, you'll have your first appliance." Cue misty eyes from my daughter. Owner gave us an extra $50 off, which was yet another nice surprise. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.